board to order. Let's have a check our microphone, make sure everything's in order. This time I'd like to express our condolences to the family of Amarian Jones, and at this time I would like to have a moment of silence, and let's keep Amarian and his family in our thoughts at this time. Thank you. Thank you. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, at this time, I'd like to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would like to make one amendment to the consent agenda, if possible.
All right.
Under number 5, the use of facilities, I would like to just pull one item out from under that one section. It's the item related to the Bluebird bus sales request. If we can just pull that and move it as number 4 under new business, please.
Number 4 under the use of facilities.
Yes, I would just like to ask for an explanation on that before we approve that tonight. If we can pull it out of the consent agenda, please.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else in the other?
Well, since that come up, Mr. Chairman, I have something
Yes, sir.
forward. I would like for the final report and payment of bills to be taken out of that and possibly, where are we gonna be discussing?
Response.
Yeah.
What did it pertain to? Yeah, what?
Oh, no, I just want to talk about the final report and the payment of the bills. I need to see them since I don't see them. I have a few of them. I got a couple of questions about some.
Financial report number 3 and number 4.
I'll make them 5 and 6 under new business. What you're saying?
Yes, that'd be fine. Forward,
That'd be number 5 and 6 under new business. That'd be number 4. Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Yes, number 4, we'll put the Bluebird discussion under new business. Number 5, we'll put financial reports under new business. And at number 6, under new business, we'll do payment of bills. Okay?
I move we approve the amended agenda.
Got a motion to approve the agenda as amended. And is there a second? Second by Keith McDowell. Any other discussion? All in favor to approve the agenda as amended, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, and motion is carried. Thank you.
I move we approve the consent agenda, numbers 1, 2, 6, and 7.
1, 2, 6, and 7. Is there a second?
second.
Second by Mr. Potts. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the consent agenda as amended, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion's carried. Citizens' comments. Is there anyone here tonight that wishes to make a comment? You have 3 minutes. Okay. Seeing none. Next, we'll move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Huskin.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
First of all, I would like to personally extend my deepest condolences to the Jones Hunt family. There are no words, only prayers for them to get them through 1 hour at a time. In other news, we have successfully wrapped up the 2022-23 school year. Yay. We celebrated with awards assemblies, 5th grade promotions, 8th grade promotion ceremony at the middle school, a tremendous senior awards and scholarship ceremony for our seniors. The latest number I heard was over 450, close to $500,000 in scholarships probably by the time it's all said and done. I mean, just in that morning, just the dollar amounts just kept going. Our seniors have done very well, and our community has just come out in support of our seniors, just all over the place. It was just really something to see in the amount of scholarships and awards and recognition that our seniors received. They are really going on to do amazing things. So that's really something. We wish them all well. Graduation went very well this past Saturday. I know a number of our board members were there, and thank you all for coming out and being a part of that special morning. I think it went very well. It was not too hot. We were out in an hour and a half, and smiles all around. So it was a wonderful morning. So summer school has started this week. Also, our EGP program is off to a great start, so we're excited about that. We are very happy to welcome some of our Special Olympians here this evening, and also our Lady Comet softball team. We'll be recognizing them in just a little bit, so we are just excited that everyone we have so much to celebrate. Oh my goodness, I feel like it just keeps coming. Anyway, everyone thinks that summer is kind of downtime for the school system, but it's really not. We are busier than ever, and now we're ready to just kind of say, okay, let's do it all again next year. Let's do it all again, and let's see what's going to happen as we get ready to open school again. So that's about it for now. But stay tuned. If you haven't noticed, they're starting to dig some holes over at the high school, but I'll leave that for our architects. They're going to talk to us in just a little bit about what's going on there. So that's it for now.
Thank you, Dr. Huskin. I'd just like to echo what Dr. Huskin is saying about our graduation. It's one thing that I did notice during graduation. It's like you can take the roughest people and the roughest guys that's graduating, and they'll be standing there at the bottom of the steps looking, tough and bad, mean, stuff like that. But when they come up on that stage and they reach out and they grab that diploma, it's smiles all over the place. When we got the man taking the pictures, that's the picture I want. It's all those kids and all of them smiling, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
So, anyway, condolences again to the Jones family. I'm deeply saddened by that, and I know we all are. So just let's keep them in our thoughts and our prayers, and near and dear to our hearts. Okay, recognitions. Dr. Huskin.
All right, come with me. Let's recognize some softball players. Come on with me. Let's do this together. All right. How about if our Lady Comets and coaches join me up here? Oh, come on. How about it?
wave your hands, seniors. These 5 seniors are all committed to play college ball. How about that? Round of applause. I'm just gonna start right here. We have got, raise your hand when I call your name. All Piedmont District first team, pitcher Emma Payne. Second team, second base Abby Duffer. Laurie Bowen. Honorable mention team, third base JC Parham. Outfielder Olivia Seamster. Piedmont District Player of the Year Emma Payne. Piedmont District Coach of the Year Woody Bain. All region team, first team pitcher Emma Payne. Outfielders Tamara Hankins, and outfielders Tamara Woody Jiggins. All region, outfielder Olivia Seamster, second base Abby Duffer. All state team will be announced this Wednesday, so we're a little bit early to celebrate, but I would imagine that some of these same names will be called. Not sure. But we would like to recognize you all. We have a certificate for you for your time here tonight. Thank you guys. You guys have been on the road back and forth. For those of you guys that don't know, they were on their way to Winchester the other day. Their bus broke down. I'm pulling on 64. Ms. Brisbane and I are pulling on 64 on our way to the game, and I went, "That's our girls. Hold on a minute." It's Texans. So anyway, they have been through all kinds of adversity. They were in their next game in the semifinals. Down comes the rain. So that's when they got tougher. So let adversity come their way, and these girls just get tougher. And 5 of our seniors graduated on the field Friday night because they had to decide whether they were going to come back on Saturday and play softball or graduate with their class. And what an unimaginable thing for them and their parents to have to choose. But what'd you choose?
The boo.
And so we tried to make it work for them, and we tried to make it memorable for them. And we just could not be prouder of you. So let's how about you do this? I've scribbled your names for days. Yep, come shake hands and come on over here and we'll get your picture. How about that?
Hannah Abbott.
Go down there and we'll get your picture.
Avery Bowen.
This is the quietest I've ever seen them. They probably are a little tired.
Abigail Duffer. Hannah Ellison. Shamya Hankins. Maya Hankins, I'm sorry.
Don't mess with her. She had the ball out of the park over top of your head.
Jalen Harlow.
Absolutely. Don't thank me. Thank you. It was our honor.
J.C. Parham. Emma Payne. Olivia Seamster. Emma Shepard. Kinley Staten.
They are.
Lexi Swilly. Destiny Talbot. Tamara Woody Jiggins. Woody Bain.
Thank you very much.
Jennifer Rutledge.
And Mr. Smith, yes, well, no, we don't, because his had a typo, so we're gonna have to get you yours. We found yours had a typo. We don't have these papers for you. Please, absolutely.
What an outstanding year for Thomas softball. What great softball players we have. The way they represented Halifax County, they were greater at bat than playing softball, and we were the second best team in the state.
Yes.
They're better people, they have high character. These are the girls that you're really proud to say are from Halifax County.
Yes.
So thank y'all for everything y'all done, and these girls deserve everything that they did. They are outstanding. Step up one. And then, right up, squeeze it. Demo.
I'm a photo bomb. Hop up and get a photo.
Thank you for everything you've done.
Absolutely, thank you. It's my honor. Thank you. Why the Special Olympics one? I guess we'll do that next.
Hey, Woody, we'll see you next year.
Pardon?
We'll see you next year.
Yeah, we're in good shape. Unfortunately, we're losing 5 good ones, but Alex, softball always was. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Woody. First, under reports, Special Olympics Regional Representative Lisa Wimbish.
Well, greetings, Chair, Vice Chair, and Dr. Hudson. I am Lisa Wimbush with Special Olympics Virginia. And after seeing those lady comments, I'm like, man, that's a tough act to follow, but I'll do the best that I can. Again, I'm Lisa with Special Olympics Virginia, and I am super excited to be with you all on tonight and other school board members. It's so many things that I want to cover, but I know I have a short amount of time, so I want to just kind of get on some of the highlights of our athletes and what our athletes have done this school year. But I have to start with Area 15 is an amazing group. I must repeat that. Area 15 is an amazing group. Out of 32 areas in the state of Virginia, there's nothing like Area 15. Area 15 is the only area that incorporates their local program in their school, in the school system. So that's something very unique and something that we are trying to encourage others to do that Area 15 has done a phenomenal job in doing. So that's something to really brag about. But let's go with some of the highlights that took place this school year. So being that the pandemic, over the years, we lost a lot of athletes, a lot of numbers of athletes participating, and we had around 25 athletes. But I'm excited to say this school year we had over 100 athletes participate. And this age range was from 5 to 50 plus, which is a good representation of our athletes within the state. So when it comes to sports and competition, these athletes competed in soccer, soccer skills, bocce tournament that took place in October. And within that tournament, we had 20 bocce athletes and 9 soccer athletes participate from Charlotte and Halifax County. One of those bocce adult athletes and 2 of those soccer skill athletes advanced to the Special Olympics Virginia state competition at the Fall Championships. This took place in Virginia Beach in November. Moving on to our basketball tournament, that took place in January where Charlotte County and Halifax County participate in. We had full court basketball teams participate, as well as individual skills basketball athletes competed, with a total of 35 athletes that trained and competed, and 30 of those competed in that tournament. 3 of those Halifax County High School athletes were cheerleaders as well, cheering on their fellow teammates on the court. 5 basketball skill adults advanced to the Piedmont Regional Tournament that took place in Lynchburg, Virginia in March. And out of those athletes, 5 of them competed in the Special Olympics Virginia Championship that took place in Stafford, Virginia. And moving on to aquatics and swimming that took place in March. Again, Charlotte County and Halifax County participated. And we had a total of 26 swimmers. 4 aquatics and 1 skill athlete participated. 2 of those aquatic athletes advanced on to the regional competition, and this regional competition took place in Richmond. And from there, 2 of those athletes competed in summer games at the Special Olympics Virginia Summer Games that took place in Richmond this past weekend. And out of one of those athletes, I would like to bring Zach up. Zach is one, come on up to that. Zach is one of the athletes that competed this weekend at Summer Games. And Zach, show off some of your medals that you competed in. Congratulations, Zach. You can stay up here with me. I enjoy your company. Our athletes, when they train and they practice in Area 15, as I've been mentioning, they have an opportunity to advance to the regional competition. And from the regional competition, they advance to state. So I'm happy to say that Zach has been able to do all 3. Moving on to our bowling competition that took place in March, we had 56 athletes compete. So you can imagine what our #1 sport is in Area 15. 3 of those adults went on to participate in summer games that took place in Richmond, where Zach was at this past weekend. And again, that took place in Richmond this past weekend. Our track meet took place in April, and I'm happy to say that we had Mecklenburg County join us, as well as Charlotte and Halifax, with a total of 77 athletes. So with this being said, Halifax County Schools has been active all year round, and that is something to celebrate. Sometimes within the state, we only have a few that may participate in the beginning of the year or the end of the year or one sport. And again, I'm happy to report that Halifax County Public Schools has been participating from the beginning to end. And within all our training and competition, the Halifax schools that participated was Cluster Springs Elementary, Scottsboro Elementary, Halifax County Middle School, and Halifax County High School. And on a different note, Halifax County and Charlotte County athletes participated in the Christmas parade, which is always a fun time with the themes, and they all get involved into it, as well as they both participated in the Special Olympics Virginia Polar Plunge, which is a fundraiser to help support. I'm sorry, what did I say?
Oh, boy, I've seen that.
Oh, so you know, so you guys are, okay, so you guys are a fan. I looked up, I was like, what? Oh, you guys are a part of the team. I love it. So yes, I'm gonna say it again, Special Olympics Virginia Polar Plunge, which is a fundraiser that takes place, as you all know, is a huge event that takes place in February at Virginia Beach that our athletes are a part of. So again, on behalf of Special Olympics Virginia, we thank you guys so much for your support, your involvement, and being cheerleaders for not only these athletes, but these parents and all of the community being a part of Special Olympics. If you know anything about Special Olympics, it is a community, a beautiful world that cheers on one another and celebrates one another. But most importantly, these athletes have been practicing, they have been training, and they are competing. For you all, you mentioned them as students. For us, they're champions. So again, thank you guys so very much for allowing me to be here and for Zach to show off his medals on tonight. Thank you again.
Moving on to the high school construction update, Mr. Maresca has asked that I invite Mr. Boyd up to speak first. So, Jim, if you...
Thank you, Vince. Well, it's good to be back. We have some slides and we'd like to show you the building. But first, let me bring you up to date on a few things that have happened. We now have a zoning permit from the town of South Boston. They are looking for a couple of more design items that we'll be following this summer. And we've met with the code official, been through plans, and will soon, plans will be reviewed by the state fire marshal's office. The town of South Boston has asked that they review it rather than the town. But we have all the permits we need now to start digging. So we're moving along and looking forward to a groundbreaking ceremony. Steve, are you hooked up? Okay, Steve Munt will take you through updates to the floor plans and elevations. And some people in the room probably haven't seen this, so it's, many of you on the school board have, so it's a repeat for some, but for others, they'll be seeing this for the first time. So it's all yours, Steve.
So it occurs to me that in order to be able to zoom in and zoom out, I'm going to need to sit over here. So I won't have a microphone, but I think you all can hear me well enough. But,
Are you trying to say you're a loudmouth?
and here's the solution. Who knew? All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, well, much of this has not changed since you saw it last, but we did want to give you an update. We have the 3 floor plans here to show you. We have a number of renderings of the exterior, most of which you have seen before, but we also have some additional views of the interior that some of you have not seen. But this is our first floor plan. I don't think that this has changed a great deal since you saw it last, but your entrance is here, and your administration and your guidance are here flanking the entrance corridor, which leads you into this corridor that runs the length of the school here. Your academic wings are over here. Your theater and your arts program are in light blue. Your 2-story gymnasium here, and the auxiliary gym, and the batting and pitching development area here, and all of your locker rooms, this is all in orange. One of the things that has changed, probably since some of you have seen it, is that we've really been working hard to really enlarge the fitness, the weight room and fitness area. So this is it right here. It's about 3,000 square feet. So that's going to be a good size for a fitness and weight training room. The dining room is in the heart of the school where it's always been. The green is the kitchen, and the purple here is your culinary arts program. Purple throughout the plan represents the various CTE programs. One of the things that's changed is that we in our continued meetings with the school staff, it was decided that we needed to have an additional building trades lab so that we could have separate spaces for the building trades, which is primarily carpentry, and the building trades, which is the electrician training right here. So those two are right next to one another, and we moved the sort of main mechanical area. That's here in gray. We also expanded the automotive program. We had initially, you might recall, started with spaces for 6 cars. We had shrunk that down to 4, but in our further conversations with the staff there and the programs that they need to run, we decided it really couldn't work with less than 5. So we managed to create an automotive lab that has 5 bays, each with its own garage door, and did this without adding any additional square footage to the building. So it's a matter of prioritizing, pushing and pulling to without increasing the square footage, get some of the things that you needed, like the larger fitness center and the 5 bays in the automotive center. We also, with the horticulture and landscaping program, we've got 2 spaces serving that, so that's a slight modification of what you might have seen before. But otherwise, in terms of the big moves of the plan, very much the same. Moving up to the 2nd floor. Again, your academic wings over here. Here is the 2nd story of your gymnasium with the running track that runs all the way around and stands on all 4 sides. Four classrooms up here as part of the PE program. This is the upper level of the auditorium. You can enter at the upper level up here and come into this tier of sloped seating. You'll see a rendering of that in a moment that shows how that works. But this is looking down into the cafeteria below. Your media center is here in green, kind of at the heart of the school. This is the grand stair here, and there's an elevator here. These are the things that take you up to these upper levels of the academic program. And all this, the light pink are typical classrooms, whereas the purple, again, are some of the CTE spaces. And these light blue here, those are the 3 classrooms of the art program. And getting up to the top floor then, all these green spaces are the science labs. The pink classrooms here are the 9th grade academy. So with that, skipping over to some of the renderings, the exterior character of the building is very similar to what you've seen before. And some of these views are views that you've seen before, but zooming in a little, just going to be moving closer and closer to the main entrance of the school. This is the parent drop-off loop along in here, and coming right up to the front entrance then. And then around the side of the school between the 2 3-story academic wings, and then starting again from the back side of the school, again, high aerial view, and then moving in closer and closer with each image. This is the outdoor dining area right outside your cafeteria. And then these are some images here. They're not actually renderings, but they are views taken inside our Revit model, so they are not developed to the same level of detail that those almost photorealistic renderings are, but viewed at a little bit less detail. This is right after you've come into the main entrance, but you're in the secure vestibule, so you would come this way into the front office, and here's the view once you're actually inside the front office with the desk where you'd be greeted and some visitor seating waiting there. And after you've checked in here with, registered, then you'd step here into the corridor that leads you into the school. We're still working on the design of this space. It's kind of a work in progress, but this is just the 3-dimensional views through this Enscape model that helps us to see for ourselves where we need more design attention, but we'll be looking at opportunities to create additional display cases along this entrance corridor. And moving forward into this space, now you're at the end of that corridor and just beginning to enter that space where here's the entrance coming from the other side, from the bus loop, and you start to see the cafeteria there. And then you turn the corner, and now you're into the cafeteria. This is the Main Street corridor here with the open cafeteria there on your left. And as you walk down this direction and turn back around and look the other way, again, the cafeteria view from the other side. These are some views inside the auditorium. These, again, are not the rendered views. This is just views taken inside our Revit model, but it does, without full color, it gives you a sense of the volume of the auditorium. And here, moving up toward the stage and looking back, so you see the seating in the front half is at a more gentle slope, and then at the back, it goes up more steeply, and that gets you to these doors here, which are actually at the second floor level. So a person can actually enter the auditorium from the second floor through the doors back there. And then this is a view inside your gymnasium, showing the stands both at the lower level and the upper level where the running track would be. And then this is in one of the corridors in the academic area. We have these areas in the corridors where you have a typical width of a corridor that's about 10 feet wide, and then you have these zones where it opens out a little bit wider to create some opportunity for some more useful space in there. You see this edge created here in the floor tiles. That's the typical width of the corridor. So this is additional area that we've bulged out to create some seating, and there's some whiteboards and some areas where students could do work before or after class, between classes, if they need to step out of a classroom to take a test that they might have missed the day before, or do a little independent work, just some space to get a little more usage out of those corridor areas. And that is the last view. Yes, sir.
Got a couple questions. Can you go back to the gym?
Mm-hmm.
My question is dealing with the seating. How many seat sections do we have to two, one crossing from each other, or three? Or four, whatever?
I'm trying to find that view of the gym. Was it, here we go. Okay. So at the court level, you have seats on two sides. At the top level, you have seats on all four sides.
Second question. Can we lock that building down on all angles of that building? In other words, the back entrance, the front entrance, the side doors, the kitchen, they can't even get from the kitchen area outside, right? See what I'm saying? The kitchen is all inside the perimeter, it's not outside the perimeter.
Right.
Right, so there's no entry to that, but down the main corridor that goes into our building, we can lock that off from the front, we can lock it off at the stairwell, so we make sure we don't have access for people to go to second and third floor. Right?
Is
Well-
your concern about what happens during a sporting event?
No,
Or is it
I'm concerned about what happens
with
when
an
the next
intruder?
area is done. You know what I'm saying?
Or your
Sporting
concern-
events, well, sporting events too, we wanna lock that out because we shouldn't have access going there. But I'm concerned about somebody coming in that's gonna do somebody harm. I wanna make sure that's all locked off.
Right, so if zoom in here to the academic quarters, there's a set of doors right here and a set of doors right here that, we'll be working with the design of the security system to where, these doors will be on magnetic hold opens, and the current that keeps those doors in the held open position can be broken by a signal. And there's different types of systems, but it can be operated by a cell phone, it can be operated by a key fob, but, and the control over those doors can be granted to, it's programmable to whomever you want to grant that control, whether it's just the principal and the assistant principals, or there's others within the school who have that, but literally at the touch of the button, those doors and those doors can close down so that somebody who's come in here and in this main corridor cannot get down into the academic wings, and that's at all three levels. We do have pairs of doors like that in other parts of the school. It becomes difficult to there's so many different ways that a person can gain access to a building, that and because you have to maintain safe egress all the time, there is a balancing act that has to be done between security against an intruder while maintaining safe egress. But we do have other places, for instance, this set of doors right here, those doors can respond in the same way, so that a person that may have gained access to this area could be prevented from getting access down this way into the arts wing. And when we met with the code official, we were discussing ways that we could zone off this part of the building in the same way, in a way that would not impede safe egress, but we're looking at creating a perimeter along this edge. We're not sure exactly where that happens, if it's along here or along here, but a way to prevent someone from gaining access to this loop, again, from the main spaces. But it will be zoned and programmable, yeah.
So somebody from the backside can stop the progress of an intruder without having to call them front, they can go ahead and take care of that themselves right then. Right?
That is a programmable function that the school can determine who has that control.
Because seconds means life.
Understood, right.
Thank you.
I got one question. Steve, what's the capacity of the auditorium, seat-wise?
It's around the 3,000 mark at this point.
Auditorium?
Oh, I'm sorry, the auditorium, it's just under 790.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
We haven't discussed the exterior and parking lot and traffic flow. When will we discuss those items?
We can discuss those items at your direction. We can come back with some plans that better illustrate those concepts, so we can have that discussion.
That would be great. I know one of the big concerns is traffic flow for car riders versus buses and
having to turn right because there's no stoplight in some locations, and I know we have another road now, so it's kind of confusing. So if you guys could give us some options on that, that would be great.
Okay.
There will be a stoplight out there at that road, back on the backside connects out to, where Walmart is, right?
There are two stoplights, we're not adding any new ones.
Right, the traffic lights that are there now
The one that-
will be the same.
Okay.
Anybody else?
One last, I guess.
Yes, ma'am.
They mentioned the groundbreaking ceremony. Is that something that we're going to schedule?
I think
That's
Vince is gonna do
Vince
that.
is doing.
Anybody else got any questions? Jim? Sir?
I left out one thing. In addition to gaining approval from the town, we're also in possession of that very prized approval from DEQ for stormwater management. I told you at the outset that that would control the schedule. And it took our worst nightmare less month. But we are in possession of it, and it is one of the key milestones to getting to construction.
So we got the DEQ permission to
Yes.
roll
Good to
forward?
go.
Okay, great, thank you.
Add anything to that, Vince? I will in a minute. All right.
Anything else? Anybody else got any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you.
Mr. Maresca?
So as we've been saying, we do have all the permits that we, in hand, that we need to start going to work right now, pushing some dirt around. So on that, I know we've been talking about it for a couple of months now. We're ready for you to decide when would you like to come out there and let's have a groundbreaking ceremony for this town. Ideally, we could be ready very, very soon, but I think for everybody's planning efforts, it might be prudent to wait until the last week of this month, which would give us about 2 weeks, week and a half, 2 weeks, to get everything, get all our ducks in order and get everything set up out there for the amount of people you might have. So I would ask the board, is there a date that week that works best for all of you?
Like the last, you're talking about a date the last week of June?
Yes, ma'am.
We have a school board meeting on the 26th that week.
26th is
that?
Monday, yeah. I'm gonna be out of town till the 28th, so the 29th and 30th is, those are my dates, but, you know, whatever everybody else can do.
Would like you there, Jay, you worked hard for this.
Well, I'd kinda like to be there.
Well,
That's
what about the 29th?
29th?
What's that?
Thursday, the 29th?
What
What
time?
day is it?
Thursday, the 29th it is.
Rain or shine?
We'll have a
Preferably no.
contingency if it rains. We'll come up with a contingency plan in case it rains, sir.
What time, Vince?
Are they typically in the morning when you're trying to get?
We would like to have, prefer to have it maybe about 10-ish in the morning, before it gets
Before it gets
hot
hot.
for everybody.
Okay,
10-ish?
10.
10.
Okay.
Guys, how exciting is this to put on
Hey,
your calendar?
It's
Groundbreaking.
14 months in the making, plus some.
Like 5 years.
About
for
6
this.
years in the making.
Yes,
14 months just for us.
10 a.m. All right, we'll work on shovels and,
I think we have that part taken care of. I'll get with you on.
does mine have glitter?
logistics.
My hard hat needs glitter.
We'll make sure everything is in order for you, I promise.
I don't ask much.
Thank you, Vince.
Okay, the only other piece that I have for you tonight, I do have one thing to show you all, and we did receive a guaranteed maximum price for the structural package that I would ask for your vote on tonight. This structural package includes concrete, reinforcing steel for the concrete, or rebars, you know it, masonry, cast stone, structural steel, rammed aggregate piers, and all the footings. So that is in the base structural package of $23,672,255. To that, there is an add alternate for adding a moisture vapor reduction admixture in the concrete. Basically, what that does is, before you put flooring down on top of a slab, you have to check the humidity in that slab. Using an admix keeps the moisture, it keeps the concrete from being able to effervesce that moisture out. So essentially, you would be able to lay your flooring down much faster. If you don't do that, then we would, and we haven't picked out the final flooring types, which is why this is not a definitive thing. It's an add alternate for us. Because some flooring types, manufacturers require a higher, or they require a lower relative humidity in the slab. Some you can do higher. And there's also moisture mitigation systems that you can put underneath that flooring. We just need to pick out the flooring type, make sure that we're good with, everybody's good with it, and then see what the cost is to implement either this, or do we not use that and go, is it cheaper for us to go with an underfloor treatment of a moisture barrier system? But what I would ask you to consider tonight would be to approve with the add alternate right now at $23,789,026. Again, that is a not to exceed cost. And if we don't need that moisture reduction system, add that admixture, then we would not be using that.
Can I ask, what was that number previously? When we started the process?
When we started the process, but I don't think we had everything broken out by that structural package.
And my other question, when does the third maximum price come in?
The third GMP that I'll present to you all is for long lead items, air handlers, switch gears, things like that take us a long while to get. I believe that, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, the MEP drawing should be sufficient to bid by the end of, maybe the end of the month. So that would mean Shockey next month, hopefully we'll have that GMP that I can present to you all. And after that, we would just be waiting on the final building package.
I'm going to attempt to re-ask the same question that Ms. Hicks just asked. I know you said that that was not broken down previously, but I imagine that you did have some rough estimates or some prices in mind when you were putting together the prior numbers. Does this number look in line with what you had previously projected?
I believe this is in line. I believe it's only off by a few percentage points, but sir, I have not gone back and looked at that number, so I'd hate to put a definitive answer to you at this time. Yes, sir.
And this is all structural steel?
Yes,
This
sir.
is all the
This-
steel
This is
we're
just,
gonna
this is
need?
structural, and it's other steel that's in the building, your stairs.
Yes,
Those
sir.
those are involved in this, miscellaneous metals is what we call them. Lintels and things like that that go above doorways, everything in there.
Yes, sir. So last year at this
And
time, it would
concrete.
have been considerably more.
I'm sorry,
I
sir?
mean, this figure would have been considerably more, say, last year at this time. I mean,
Absolutely, it
due
would
to the
have.
steel. So,
Again, I wouldn't say that prices have started coming down, but they have stabilized
okay,
more so in the market.
thank you.
Man, one of the things I noticed up in some schools I've visited, sometimes you have some steel stuff showing. Are we gonna have steel stuff showing inside the building? Or will it be behind a facade?
We have been directed not to have exposed ceilings, like some other schools have. We are covering the ceilings. The steel you will see the stringers, you will see the steel on the stairs, but those are gonna be more of an ornamental steel. They're not gonna be just galvanized. They'll be painted, there'll be something, it won't just be blank steel.
So there are certain spaces where you will see steel, but they're like, for instance, in the gymnasium, which is absolutely customary to see all the exposed structural framing inside a gymnasium. In some of the CTE labs, like the automotive shop, the building trades lab, the electrician's lab, seeing the exposed steel in those spaces is commonplace and appropriate. But classrooms, libraries, corridors, although that, we're putting in hardscape everywhere. You'll see the columns, when you're in the cafeteria or when you're walking down Main Street, the columns will be there. We're not doing a column wrap around those, that's actually the structural steel, but it'll be painted.
It will-
We're not gonna have an induction.
In CTE, somebody asked me a question about, are we gonna have classroom space facing them for the, people that do the woodworking, the building, you know, that kind of thing?
Building trades.
Building, thank you.
It varies program by program. Some have an attached classroom space, and some, the instructional space is right in the lab.
So some will be at one place or another.
Right, for instance, the automotive lab, has
Right.
a small classroom right next to it.
Right.
It's just really difficult to teach out there in the automotive lab, so there's a little classroom there. But in the building trades lab, for instance, all the equipment is around the perimeter, they'll have tabletops right in the center of the space, which makes it actually practical to teach in the lab, not in a separate classroom.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes,
to Mr.
indeed.
To Mr. Boyd?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Boyd, I know along the way, you also would have been looking at the numbers and the prices. Does this look in line with the presentations that you made previously?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So nothing extreme or significant?
As Mr. Maresca pointed out, the original estimates we got from Shockey were broken out differently, but in the last spreadsheet I saw, they compared where they are now with where they started. It's basically the same.
Okay, I appreciate that. Now,
There's no giant spike,
okay,
which has been all of us have been our greatest work.
okay. I just wanted to make sure before we approve that number, you know, obviously that's a significant number. So before we vote on that, I'd like to ask as many people as possible. So I appreciate the input.
That's
Anybody
our
else?
whole grant right there and then some.
Yes.
We're spending our grant right there.
Michelle will.
Couple of questions for you. So previously, we were looking at 3 guaranteed maximum prices. Are we now looking at 4?
Yes, it would be 4 guaranteed maximum prices, yes, ma'am. Well, we've always done a site, and we picked up a structural because those are ready for us to get bids on. And it doesn't hurt us to break it out.
All right, yeah, because I think the next one we were looking at is the long lead time. So the base structural package, that we have specific contractors and that's ready to go? Is that why
Yes,
it was
ma'am.
broken out? Okay. All right, my other question is for the monthly project account summary. The numbers have changed pretty significantly, especially with the new budget. If we could get that reviewed by the board at the next meeting, just so that we all understand what the
Absolutely.
prices are, especially with these 2 new GMPs.
Mhm.
Increase.
No, just that's the total budget now. The expenses are different.
Mr. McDowell?
So we still don't have a guaranteed price of what this school is gonna cost us,
No, sir.
not even an estimate.
No, we don't have their latest estimate on the building package. No, sir, we do not.
Can I ask, what's the latest we'll get that, all 4?
I'm sorry?
What's the latest we'll get all 4 maximum price, so we'll have a final price of the high school?
I would assume, please, architectural team, correct me if I'm wrong, but by the end of this summer, we would have all 4 packages buttoned up.
Okay, so we have
End of
105
August.
plus the 20. And do we know where the 4 million that the school board has putting in, is that, we can talk, does that come up later? Or where does that 4 million that we're committing to the high school project come from? Because that will put us at 129. My concern is it's going to be more than 129. And we don't know where that money's still going to come from.
Do you want to tell them where our?
Sorry.
We have a facilities line currently that we have only barely touched purposefully. It's a $2,166,000. The $2 million of that we can put towards soft costs. And the other $2 million, we are looking at asking as part of that drawdown on the excess funds. So that would equal the 4.
Okay, so that facilities, that 2 million, do we have to vote on it that it's going to the high school? Or could we vote that it's going to capital improvement, or is that, who decides?
So
for
that's
that?
going to go in our closing meeting
Okay,
On the 26th, we'll have all of that information and how we will direct each of the line items.
Yeah, you all will be voting on that.
Yep.
So at this point, we don't know where we are coming up with that 4 million. So we're at 125 guaranteed, right?
I mean,
Which
it's down there,
we're at.
we're gonna bring it to you all for recommendation, it's just a matter of whether you all decide that that's where you want it to go or not.
Anybody else? Well, I just want to say one thing. Excuse me, Ms. Shawwell, I'm happy that these prices have come in what they are, because, but at one point when we were talking about building this high school, it looked like a pretty steep hill to climb, but, it looks like that you and Mr. Boyd and all you guys have done a good job for us, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Ms. Shotwell.
Yeah, I guess I would just like to reiterate the reconciliation between the two guaranteed prices versus the original estimates, so we know where we are. We know we were slightly higher on the first GMP, and we need to make sure that we're not getting way out of whack with it. So maybe when we review the monthly project expenditures in the budget, maybe you can break that out to show what's already included and
Absolutely.
approved and what's still remaining.
Absolutely.
And if there's a file with reconciliation, that would be great too, if that can be forwarded to us.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else?
I move we approve the guaranteed maximum price of 23.8 for the base structural package.
I'll second that recommendation, or that motion.
Got a motion and a second. Could we get us a roll call vote, please?
District 1, Ms. Bradley.
Yes.
District 2, Mr. Lloyd.
Yes.
District 3, Mrs. Hicks.
No.
District 4, Mr. Camp.
Yes.
District 5, Mr. Edmonds.
Yes.
District 6, Mrs. Shotwell.
Yes.
District 7, Mr. McDowell.
Mine's a no, I don't want to tell you why. I can't vote for something that I don't have a price. That's like giving a blank check. So my vote is no.
District 8, Mr. Cox.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 to 2.
Thank you, Mr. Marasco.
Thank you all.
Yes, indeed.
We'll be in touch about the groundbreaking.
Thank you. Item 3, under reports, annual step increase versus wage increase. Dr. Bucklew?
No, I mean, I'll go ahead. Yes, thank you. Good evening. Good evening. Wanted to take the opportunity, go ahead. Yes.
Excuse me just one second.
This is the agenda's in.
Oh, wait, we're kind of out of order here.
It moved into new business.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
After it was sent out.
Yeah, we gotta back up.
Yeah, I think
It's,
we're code of
it's actually, we gotta do code of conduct.
You want to do that first?
Yeah, we gotta go back. We gotta do, number 1 is code of conduct. Code of conduct is,
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I was using this one. That's Friday.
I share,
Okay.
I share with you.
Okay, thank y'all. Ms. Lewis?
Thank you, Mr. Camp. Good evening, Chairman Camp, Dr. Huskin, board members. I am coming to you guys for approval of 5 different updates for the 23-24 school year. I'll try to make this as painless as possible. I know it's not near as exciting as talking about a new high school, so, but we'll get through these. So As you see here, the first proposed update is to level 2, and this is the disposition, and it is in sentence 2. Principals may impose a short-term suspension of 6 to 10 days or recommend long-term suspension. We're going to scratch of 11 days or more and add or expulsion based on one or more aggravating factors. The reason this has been requested is because listed under level 2, there are several violations that could require a student to be expelled from school, including fighting, hazing, sexual behavior, extortion, or inappropriate illustrations or images such as child pornography. So this has been a request from the secondary schools. So I'd like to take these on one at a time if we could. Are there questions about that level 2 update?
I have a question. Have you thought about a minimum out-of-school suspension for level 2? Because those items are much more severe, but it still says, you know, the principal may give short-term suspension.
Right, so it does give latitude to the building level principals or assistant principals to make a decision of a short-term suspension as well, or in some cases, no suspension. But there are some factors that may lead a principal or assistant principal to need to recommend expulsion to the school board.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with the potential expulsion for some of the items. But substantially disruptive property damage, harassment, indecent exposure, hazing, those are pretty significant items. I would think it would have a mandatory out-of-school suspension for that.
Yeah, I would say in most cases that those folks have talked and they have made those decisions kind of ahead of time, that they're going to be a range of 3 to 5 days for some of those. You know, it largely depends on the circumstances surrounding those situations. And it's hard to say mandatory 5, you know, but it does give the principal or assistant principal latitude to recommend suspend. And I would say all of those things you named probably are going to be suspensions. I've had significant experience at both schools, and I don't see those being warnings or written off. I think they would be suspensions. And in most cases, probably long-term suspension. But if it's significant, we may want to recommend expulsion. I hope I've answered your question.
You did, yeah. I think I would still prefer to see a minimum required suspension, but,
Yeah, so when I read the first sentence there, it says may warrant short-term suspension of up to 5 days. From what I understand, level 2 obviously would be a little bit more egregious in nature, so if we replaced may with shall in that one sentence, is that overstepping or is that inappropriate?
Yeah,
You know these categories better than I.
So I think we have to trust our building level principals to know when they need to put in place a short-term suspension or a long-term suspension or expulsion. They have significant experience in those buildings, and I think any time you show up, this is what we're going to do, it leads to some challenges.
Okay.
Because it may be a circumstance that is minor, that falls under level 2 and may not warrant even a short-term suspension. And I would think those principals would need that latitude to make that decision. But there again, that's my opinion. You guys certainly had the right to change that.
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask once more if you could give us some examples of the level 2 rule violations once more, just so we have a better idea of what we're looking at.
So 2.1 is mutual respect. 2.2 is tobacco, vaporizers, nicotine products. 2.3 is falsification or deceit. 2.4, inappropriate illustrations, images, or other materials. Hacking and unauthorized computer access, trespassing, substantially disruptive or dangerous behavior, school transportation disturbance, false fire alarm, fire setting, property damage, extortion, indecent exposure, sexual behavior, harassment, threat, false threat, physical aggression, frighten, report of firearm or destructive device, hazing, search and seizure, aiding and abetting. So there's some pretty serious topics in there for sure. You know, and that's why the schools have requested that this be changed to add expulsion for those reasons.
You know, just listening to that list, it seems to be a fairly large divide between some of those offenses and some of the others.
I mean, it could be as simple as signing his mom's name to a paper that got sent him to be signed to light the fire.
Right, and that's why we need the latitude.
That's a caveat.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's a large divide between where you first started and where you ended on that list there.
Mr. Camp,
Yes,
did I say something?
Yes.
So, Mr. Lewis, what you're asking us to look at here is, first of all, to trust the judgment of the principals and the assistant principals based on the knowledge of the student and the circumstances surrounding what has happened? Is that what you're asking us to take a look at?
Yes, ma'am, that's a great summary of what I was attempting to say, but you said
Okay.
it much better than I.
Because the principals and the assistant principals know the students better than we do.
Sure, they're going to be familiar with former offenses, or maybe they have none, so yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
You're welcome.
Mr. Camp,
Yes.
I have a question. I don't hear, I didn't hear where, when we had an incident that took place like that this year, because I sat on it, where a student got onto a base canister and used it, sprayed it in the hallway. It didn't spray anybody, but we did have some problems with that. Why isn't that on there?
Right, so that is in here, is the third item I plan to address tonight. So if we could take care of level 2, when we get to, I'm proposing we add that to 222 in just a few moments.
Okay, so my second question on that, thank you for clearing it up. Second question is, well, this is the first time doing this, but they haven't got any more trouble before that, but yet it clarifies them being in a level 2. What's gonna happen then?
Right, so I think by making this change, it doesn't necessarily say that we're going to recommend expulsion in every case or either long-term suspension. It says that they can warrant a short-term suspension of up to 5 days. And of course, if it has aggravating factors, long-term or expulsion. So the principal could choose based on the circumstances to, give a warning or 1, 2, 3 day suspensions. So it would be their choice based on what they know about the student and what they've discussed as team members in those buildings, how they're going to handle situations. So, but when you have the more aggravating factors in some of these cases, and believe me, they do come up, the principal may need to request from the board an expulsion of a student. So that's the only thing we're trying to add. This is at the request of the secondary schools to add this.
Mr. Lloyd.
So if I'm reading this correctly, it could go anywhere from nothing until, to expulsion, correct?
Yes, that is accurate, Mr. Lloyd. We moved to level 3, and as the levels progress, so does the disciplinary measures or the disposition.
Mr. McDowell.
Mr. Lewis, number 14. I see y'all took, written permission from the current authority.
We're not down there yet.
So I was hoping that we could address these one at a time. So right now, so number 14 would be the second one that we would like to address. So if we could finish 2, then I'll be glad to try to explain where that came from to the entire board and community.
Mr. Lloyd.
My final question, Mr. Lewis, I'm assuming this would be a living document anyway, something we would be reviewing regularly. So if we implement this change, I guess my point is that we could bring it back at any point, and if this is not working, or if we, see where we may have made an error in judgment, we could go back and correct that at a future meeting.
Yes, sir, absolutely. The board can update this code at any time. The reason for these series of requests now is so that we can get things printed for the 23-24 school year. And I've been collecting these throughout the year, so I probably should have explained this process a little bit earlier. So I sent out a message to all the different principals, leaders, and said, do you have items that need to be addressed? And that's where this list came from. So.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes, sir.
so since this being a living document supposedly, how are we gonna know exactly what the outcome is unless it's been printed and given to us every month to see what's what? What's gonna happen?
All right, so there are no changes made without the board voting on it. So Dr. Huskin and I, and whoever are not sitting down making any changes to this, these are proposed updates that require the school board approval. So the document will not change once it has been approved, without you guys' approval.
Once the decision's been made by the administrator to do A, and we read it and get B out of it, what we gonna do, how's that gonna take place?
Yeah, I'm not following your question, Mr. Potts.
But if we disagree with what they said, how are we gonna do anything about it?
So you mean if a principal made a decision that you didn't agree with,
Right.
what are you to do about it? I would suggest that you talk to Dr. Huskin, make her aware of that decision, and that she have a conversation with that school leader. And then, of course, we could look into it as well and make sure it was in accordance with policy.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the decision should be ours and not left up to the principal or superintendent. Because we are the ones who make the final decision on this stuff, not those I just named. So if I see something I disagree with, maybe I need to bring it back before the board and see exactly why it took place like that, then maybe I get a clearer understanding of why that happened.
So the school board does make decisions in cases of expulsion, but, typical day-to-day operations, the principal or assistant principal would assign the disposition for the student. And of course, the parents have their right to due process, so they can talk to the principal, or they can appeal it to myself, and in some cases, the superintendent as well. So there are, safeguards, checks and balances there to make sure that the principal's not making random decisions.
I just want to make sure that everybody understands, that's including the board and the administrators as well. My approach to this is that we need to be fair and consistent. So therefore, when we do something, we need to make sure that we do what's right the first time and not have to come back and clean it up the second time. Because we've had to do that because some people did something bad they weren't supposed to do, and then we ended up having to clear it up. So I'm just saying, make sure we understand, that all of us as board members understand, even though the principal may say that's fine, we still have an ultimate decision on that, whether that's not. The fact is you're saying, well, he's gonna make it, and we can't say anything about it, I think that's completely wrong.
And I didn't say you couldn't say anything about it. I think if you got wind of something you thought was inappropriate, that the appropriate approach to that is to call Dr. Huskin, and she can either look into it with the principal or designate assistant superintendent or director of student services or whoever to follow up on that to make sure appropriate procedure or policy was followed. I don't think we ever ignore something if we think a wrongdoing took place.
I move to accept proposed update level 2.
Got a motion to
I'll second.
approve it? Second by Roy Keith. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, let me know by saying aye.
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 Aye. Let's do a roll call vote, Tammy. Let's do a roll call vote, please. The motion is to approve the level 2 proposed update.
District 1, Ms. Fraser.
Yes.
District 2, Mr. Lloyd.
Yes.
District 3, Mrs. Hicks.
Yes.
District 4, Mr. Camp?
Yes?
District 5, Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
District 6, Mrs. Shotwell?
Yes.
District 7, Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
District 8, Mr. Potts?
No.
Motion carries 7-1.
The second proposed update falls under instructions for Halifax County School Bus riders. So as we found, reading through the code multiple times, and this was brought to my attention, that is contradictory. So on page 10 of the code, it says in paragraph 2, notes and phone calls will not be acceptable changes to the original plan. And then when we get down to number 14, it is contradictory in saying unless he or she has written permission, which written permission would come in the form of a note from a parent or guardian approved by the principal or his or her designee. So talking to the Director of Transportation at the time, they thought it was best that we strike that sentence and just put a period after home. We can't say in one paragraph, notes and phone calls will not be accepted, and then say later on that we will accept that to change in the transportation plan.
My interpretation of that was the second paragraph there, that if any changes to the original plan, meaning for the rest of the year, are required, then notes and phone calls aren't allowed, and they'd have to go into the office to change the full year plan. But the other comment with the written permission would be a one-time thing or as needed. Is that not the way they interpret it?
Yes. So if someone needed to make a permanent change, they could make a permanent change to the transportation plan, i.e. they moved or they need to be dropped off at a separate location. This would be on a day-to-day basis, accepting notes, which causes a lot of issues for our transportation department. If they're expecting a number of riders and then you add 3 or 4 based on notes, it causes some issues for transportation. So this wouldn't prevent someone from making a permanent change, just not day-to-day notes.
I mean, if you have a parent or something that's not at home, and got tied up at the doctor's office, I mean, you're gonna have to take a call. You're gonna have to take a note. Based on a note, you're gonna have to take a note. It's up to you all to verify. So I disagree. I think that needs to stay in.
Mr. Lloyd, sorry.
Well, Mr. McDowell touched on some part of what I was going to say. I guess I'm just clarifying again, as a parent, if I, for whatever reason, I have an emergency come up and I need, or an event come up and I need to contact the school to say, please allow so-and-so to get off at his grandmother's house today, this right here would prevent that if approved, correct?
No, so the code does address that in paragraph 2 on page 10, that emergencies will be handled on an individual basis. So that would be at the discretion of the school administration. This is simply for notes, and this does happen. Sometimes folks just want to ride home because they're a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever the different reasons. So it's not, if somebody's having a legitimate emergency, then of course we would transport that child. The school building administrators could make that decision. This is prevent day-to-day notes from one bus to the next. And again, this was at the request of the Director of Transportation.
I'll go ahead and make a motion if we need a motion. I would make a motion that we do not implement this change. I guess we don't need that motion if no one makes a motion to approve it, but I don't mind to get the ball rolling if we would like a motion to not accept this proposed recommendation.
Okay, have a motion not to approve the proposed recommendation. Do I hear a second? Second by Mr. McDowell. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
You have a roll call vote.
Roll call vote, please. Tammy?
Tammy, would you read the motion one more time, please? Or maybe Mr. Lloyd say the motion one more time?
My motion was simply that we do not accept this recommended change. We leave the policy as is.
No.
Ms. Pringles, no.
Yes, ma'am.
District 2, Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
District 3, Mrs. Hicks? No. District 4, Mr. Camp?
I'm gonna say no.
District 5, Mr. Evans?
No.
District 6, Mrs. Chapman?
Yes.
District 7, Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
District 8, Mr. Fox?
Yes means it stays, no means it goes, right?
Stays as is, yes. It stays as is.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes.
It's 5, 4.
Fails.
So you can do a motion to approve, but that would tie 4-4, and so the change would not be approved at that point, right?
Right. Carry on.
All right, we'll move to the next proposed updates, which is a new addition to the number 2 level for personal defense spray. So what we're proposing here is that that be removed from 3.3 because under the state of Virginia, personal defense spray is not listed as a weapon. And it simply says no student shall possess or use personal defense spray on school property. This does not apply to any student who finds personal defense spray on school property or receives it from another person or on school property and who immediately reports the item to school administration or law enforcement authorities. Further defines personal defense spray as any mace, pepper spray, or any other personal defense sprays. As we've changed level 2 earlier tonight, this would have a range of consequences from short-term suspension to expulsion. So it's 2 things I'm asking for to add it as 222, and this is at request of secondary administration, and remove it from the weapons list and make its own category.
I like the update to pull it out and have its own category, but I have big concerns about not allowing students to possess it. We've got 16, 17-year-old girls just getting their license, driving around town. As a parent, I don't have a daughter, but if I did, she would have a mace spray on her keychain. So if she's driving around town and she has it on her keychain, then she goes into school and she still has it, I would rather see this, and I can make a motion if we need to, but the discharge of it, unless an emergency on school property, but possessing it, I believe that students should be allowed to possess personal defense spray. God forbid something like Loudoun County happens here. Our students should be able to protect themselves. Doesn't mean they should abuse it and set it off, especially without a just cause. But I would hate to be the person that said, no, you can't have this. They take it off their keychain and something happens outside of school. So I would not agree with this one.
Is there a way we can word it so that it's, if it becomes a discipline, if it becomes misuse of it? Like, is there a way to word it to,
You
If we
change possess to
change it to-
dispense.
I mean, you could simply say no student shall misuse personal defense
Yeah,
spray
just
on
misuse
school
it.
property if that's the will of the board.
I mean, to me, that's having commons, you know? Because if you just set it off in the hallway and it becomes a problem, then that's misuse of it. But if you are being attacked,
So I would submit it.
Yes, sir,
Thoughts?
Mr.
We
Pike.
had a particular case to come up, and the person that had it, one thing happened, and the person that dispensed it, something else happened was severe for him or her. And I think we found out that particular day that it was against state law to have those on school property. No question there on that, because it says causative agents, and causative agents are mace, sprays, anything like that. If I'm wrong, then take it off, but if the state law doesn't say that, then I maintain what I say. You cannot have it on property. The state law says that. So what you're gonna need to do is go find the state law, then we can find it. Because we did find the state law that day, because that same argument came up by the parent that said that, oh, we didn't say anything about having that, et cetera. And then we looked further into it and found that the state law said you couldn't have that because it came in and didn't say that particular, but the agents themselves, what makes them work is part of the chemical that shouldn't be exposed, period. So therefore, they shouldn't be carried on the school property.
Yeah, I'm not certain of that law, but it may exist. I can certainly research that more for this board. I do know it's not listed as a weapon, but it may be listed separately under the Code of Virginia. I am not 100% one way or the other on that. I would have to do more research.
I believe the documentation that was provided to us that day showed that it was allowed on any premises. So barring a copy of that law that says it isn't, I mean, that is documentation we went through that day. So I would submit a motion that we modify 11, or add section 2.22 and modify it to say no student shall misuse personal defense spray on school property.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of the school principals, vice principal, found the state law where that said that those particular agents should not be used at school, should not be in the possession of kids at school. And he was right when he said that it's not anything in there, but the fact that that type of agent is used in those type of chemicals causes it to be something that would not be doing. And they haven't changed, unless I understand, maybe they haven't changed the law since that time. And that was brought up that day. That was read that day, straight out the book. It was straight out the phone, and we looked it up. I think once we find out whether or not it is that, then we can look at it and see.
We've got to discuss it. We've got a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
My second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I guess my only discussion would be, I actually like the terminology, the misuse. However, I would like to know if we're compliant, obviously, with Virginia law if we make that change. I mean, I think that's that's an important part that's hanging over our head before we take a vote on this.
Could we table that until the 26th meeting? Y'all want to meet?
Yeah, I certainly can research this more for the board and make sure we're in compliance with Virginia code.
If we vote on the other proposed changes and then just bring that up on the 26th,
That's no problem.
is that okay with
Ms.
the
Shotwell?
rest of the board members?
Do we want to table 3-3 as well, or is that still the definition of a weapon?
Yeah, so they're all the same requested updates, so both of those would be tabled, Ms. Shotwell.
Is pepper spray allowed in Virginia? In school in Virginia, yes. Pepper spray is legal to purchase, use, and carry for self-defense purposes. Hold on, I'm trying to find the code.
I was thinking you had to be of
Code
age 18.
18.2, 308-1. But we'll look into it and get it printed.
Yeah, we'll certainly get clarity
Yeah, we'll
for
get-
the
we'll get
entire
extra
board
clarity
on that.
Can I
That's
make,
just my first initial, about age restrictions and all that.
well, can I make a motion that we table, I guess it's 222 and 3, is that correct? If I'm wording that correctly?
Yes, they're both part of the same update, thank you.
Can we table those until the June 26th meeting? That would be my motion.
Is there a second? Motion and a second, we table 222 and 3 until June 26th. Any further discussion? If not, let's do a roll call vote again. Tammy, okay?
District 1, Ms. Fraley.
Yes.
District 2, Mr. Wood.
Yes.
District 3, Mrs. Hicks. Yes. District 4, Mr. Camp.
Yes?
District 5, Mr. Evans.
Yes.
District 6, Ms. Chotwell. Yes. District 7, Mr. Galvin. District 8, Mr. Black.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
The next update I'm bringing before the board is 1.6, integrity. We are asking to add the underlined sentence. Students who cheat on the Virginia SOL test or any other standardized achievement test will receive a minimum of a 3-day out-of-school suspension. The student will receive a score of 0 on the test and will not be eligible for a retest. High school students will be eligible to retest in the next administration.
What happened to grade 3?
That was part of the other update with proposed update for personal defense spray. So if you're not gonna pull it out, then we wouldn't strike it from weapons. So we're gonna address that on June 26th.
So 1.6, I agree with the update. Just one question. It's identified as level 1.6, and level 1 does not allow for out-of-school suspension. Is there another way to reword that or put a note that it's in level 2 or something?
It may, you make a valid point, it may be that we move that to 222. And then the other update can become 223. Or we would have to adjust level 1 to include short-term suspension.
May I ask a question?
Sure you can.
Mr. Lewis, can you educate me, why would we make this, why is this a more severe penalty or more severe action, I guess, than just cheating in general?
I don't think it's meant to be more severe. I think it's just meant to be outlined ahead of time so that all the schools will know exactly how to handle it, so that we'll have a standard approach across all schools. Because it does happen, unfortunately. Of course, a lot's riding on SOL tests and those type things. So in talking with Dr. Hawks, she's not here tonight, she thought it was best, and I agree with her, that we outline it for all schools to have a standard approach to that.
I guess so.
So it's no questions, 'cause what happens if somebody does it, so it becomes a question of, why do they get a 0 on the test? Why can't they take it tomorrow? So that as we're notifying parents and students, they're well aware of the consequences for this.
Mr. Chair, can I bring something up?
Yes, sir.
We also have, well, somebody may have been a honor student that did that. And I think they were taken out of the honor roll, out of society classes or something like that. Is that what happened there?
I'm not familiar with that specific case, but I would say that if a person was cheating either on the SOL or in class, that the Honor Society Council would convene and make a decision whether they would be removed or not. They could just be placed on probation, but I would say typically cheating probably would be a dismissal from Honor Society, but that would come from the Honor Society Council.
So we would need to do that to take the pressure off of them?
So that the National Honor Society has a long-standing set of guidelines and things in place. I don't think we need that for this purpose, no.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the integrity underlined items, but identify it as a level 2-22, specifically for the SOL and standardized achievement tests.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Potts. Any discussion? Let's do another roll call vote, Tammy, please, ma'am.
District 1, Ms. Fraley.
Yes.
District 2, Mr. Lloyd.
Yes.
District 3, Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
District 4, Mr. Camp.
Yes.
District 5, Mr. Edmonds.
Yes.
District 6, Ms. Chotwell.
Yes.
District 7, Mr. McDowell. District 8, Mr. Potts.
Yeah, no, excuse me, yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Now, move to the last page, which is 221, personal technology devices, of course, most often referred to as the cell phone policy. So there are a few things that the schools have asked for that I've tried to incorporate into this update. So we'll try to go through those as best we can. So previously, it says students may not use these during instructional time. Now the proposal, so this is a minor shift, says the instructional school day or the school day. The difference is that students would still be able to use them before and after school, but they would not be able to use them during hall changes. We did add a provision, the first underlined sentence for high school, that the respectful, non-disruptive use of personal technology devices may be permitted before and after school and during lunch. The use of personal technology devices will not be allowed in classrooms, hallways, or restrooms during instructional time. It also says that students who require access to an electronic device due to health concerns as documented through a 504 plan, an IEP, or official health plan may be granted access to their device as described in the plan. Because a lot of folks monitor their diabetes that way. Students may also maintain possession of these devices while participating in and off-campus school-sponsored events such as field trips and sporting events. Students are required to follow all school and division-level rules regarding the acceptable use of these devices while participating in an off-campus school-sponsored event. A student may be denied use of the device at the discretion of the division employee supervising the student at the event. Should a student's electronic device need to be confiscated while on an event, the parent will be notified as soon as reasonably possible. And also covers the SOL test. Any student using an authorized electronic device during Virginia SOL testing or any other standardized achievement test will receive a 3-day out-of-school suspension. A student may not access any electronic devices, including but not limited to cell phones, e-books, tablets, games, wearable technology, etc., during testing. So not a huge shift here. So what we're talking about is eliminating use of phones during transition times at the high school because it becomes problematic when they pull them out for 5 minutes and then have to put them back up in the very next class. So I'll try to answer any questions on any of this.
I had 2 questions.
Yes, Ms. Hicks.
The second paragraph, the last phrase, instructional time. In the beginning, you changed instructional time to school day. So my recommendation would be to also change that to school day.
Okay, I see.
And then my other question that's not addressed on this is, are cell phones allowed on the buses to and from school?
To my knowledge, yes. Mr. Medley, are drivers allowing students to use their cell phones on their school bus? I'm aware of no restriction of that.
I don't think there's any, no, sir.
Okay, I'm not aware of any either, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Mr. Medley. I'm not aware of anything that restricts that.
Okay, so if that's the case, it would be good to communicate that through the bus driving department. because there's inconsistencies.
Mr. Clark, excuse me. Mr. Lewis.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could you please explain to the audience and to this board why we are talking about this? 'Cause this just didn't come out of the clear blue sky. It's because of years of what we had to deal with the abuse of phones by students.
Yeah, so I'll have, Mr. Davis, if you will, I did prepare a couple of slides, just in case this question may arise. So at the middle school, what we did is compile what the 21-22 numbers look like versus the 22-23. So previously, there were 27 incidents of cell phone violations, and this year it climbed to 111. So cell phones, in my experience, do cause a lot of other issues that may not be documented in the number of 111, so it may be a secondary offense as opposed to the first level of offense. So if a student's had a verbal altercation or an altercation, a lot of times, not every, but a lot of times it came from something they were doing on their cell phone, either social media, texting, or social websites, different things. So it doesn't tell the whole story. And then, Mr. Davis, if you will, the high school numbers last year were 155, and then this year 280. So in an attempt to curb that some, we're asking to kind of tighten a little bit, but still having some flexibility for students so that they can focus primarily on instruction during the school day. Because a lot of research has been done on schools have participated in a lot of research on the number of distractions caused by cell phones just in the way of alerts that pop up on their phone. We haven't gone that far as a division to do that, but certainly can distract from learning and cause other disciplinary issues.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes, sir.
how would the majority of the problems that we've had in our disciplinary areas been because of cell phones?
Yeah, so what Mr. Potts is referring to is we've had 210 disciplinary hearings this year, and typically in those hearings, in some shape or fashion, it'll come back to either social media or cell phones. I wouldn't say every one of those cases, but several for sure. So particularly the ones that come to you guys are already serious, so we need to be aware of that.
And someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think maybe 1 year ago, we were just fighting over this wording, and we chose the term instructional time as opposed to school day, and am I correct in that? I want to say about last year, we really worked on this wording significantly, and that's where we ended up, was using the term instructional time. And a lot of the concerns that were expressed at that point would be, the need to, maybe just a simple communication, check with the child on after-school practice, or, whatever it may be, a parent's ability to make contact with them when it was not during instructional time. I certainly understand the concerns about social media, but I don't think making this change here is going to change a student's access to social media. They're going to access that, and you're going to have the same level of problems that result from social media. They're just going to occur at a different time of the day. I mean, 'cause literally here, we're talking about the 5-minute classroom change. I mean, that's the only change would be in the access. So I don't think that 5-minute limitation on social media is going to really change the discipline matters that we're referring to. Again, I'm a parent of 3, 2 of whom graduated from Halifax, and another one's still in Halifax school, and which he's much younger, but I can say during their high school years, they were all involved in athletics and other extracurricular activities, and it was nice to be able to have some level of access to them if I needed to check on whatever it may be. Maybe it's something as simple as they left something at home and I needed to go get that and bring that to them. So I don't see the benefit of this change. Again, I'm only one board member, but I don't see any benefit actually, to the top change, where you're talking school day to instructional time.
So, Mr. Lloyd, if I may, the school board gave me direction at that time to bring back some data and recommendations at this time of the year, and that's why we're here. I agree with some of the points you make, that parents do need some access, but also some planning ahead of time, and use of email is still an option with the school devices. I think that the difference is subtle, but it keeps the students from getting distracted from instruction for those 5 minutes or while they're in the bathroom. So what a student will do is ask to go to the bathroom and go in there and be on their cell phone for several minutes too. This is not a shift to saying you can't use them before or after school, and it also includes lunch for high school students. So the reason that gave me that direction.
So if I may, in the example that you just gave, if a student asked to be excused to go to the restroom, to me, that's still during instructional time. They just had a brief recess to go there. I mean, they're still instructional time, it's during the class period. That's not between class changes, it's not lunchtime. That is what, as a board, we intended when we said instructional time. If we need to clean up that language, if we were not clear enough, I think we certainly could do that. But again, I think we're looking at a 5-minute span in class changes. That's the only change that I see here. And please don't hesitate to correct me if I'm wrong. That's the only thing I'm seeing. Because
That's
again, it
correct.
says.
That is the request.
So I don't know that you see a reduction from 111 to whatever you made by changing that small period of time.
If I may.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing those numbers, because we did ask for that, so that is helpful to see that. Do you know how many of those were repeat offenders? I think that was one of the other items that we had asked to see.
It's difficult to count these even. I do know that 29 of them at the high school resulted in suspensions. So they would be 29 students that were repeat offenders.
Okay. And this is, right now, asking to move it to section 2-21. It's originally a level 1 offense, and you're asking to move it to a level 2?
So we moved it to level 2, I thought, last year. So that it could encompass the dispositions at the end. So that's probably not reflective in the printed policy you have. It would be reflected on the policy online.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to check that. I didn't
Yeah.
remember us making this a level 2.
And before we present the final draft of this for next school year, I'll make sure that our numbering is correct. But when we moved it to the offenses where it included a 10-day suspension or recommendation for long-term, we had to change it to a level 2.
We did spend several hours discussing this last fall, so I won't go through all of the reasons that have already been stated, but I would not agree with this one. I think they need some access. So I would put the motion to not approve this change.
Got a motion and a second to not approve the change. Any further discussion?
Mr. Camp?
Yes, Ms. Wright.
Well, this is not going to be a popular statement, but I'm going to go ahead and make it anyway. I'm not in agreement with the way things are stated, and I'll tell you why. I don't believe cell phones need to be in schools at all. They take away too much time of instructional, valuable time that we need for our students. We have secretaries in our buildings that before cell phones were created, were able to answer all the calls that parents and children needed to make to one another. Again, it's not a popular thing for me to say, but I feel very strongly that we do not need cell phones in our schools. Whether it's in between class change, whether it's during the cafeteria time, whether it is going to the bathrooms. Children need to be engaged in learning. And they need to be prepared when they walk in that class to sit down and be ready to be instructed and learn. And not have to worry about putting their cell phone up or cutting it off or putting it in their purse or their backpack or whatever. So if we were to vote on this tonight, my vote would be no for that reason. Thank you, Mr. Camp.
I guess I had to agree with Ms. Fraley to a certain extent. One of the issues that I have is privacy. And what I mean about that is that I think that we should be able to protect the innocent and protect a victim. Majority of the times that incidents occur when you're changing class and kids get to fight. And next thing you know, it's on YouTube, it's on Facebook. You got to think about the innocent and that victim. That once that child record that incident in that corridor or in that cafeteria, now your child is on Facebook, he or she is on YouTube, and you can't take it off. Yes, I do think in some instance, kids need to have access to a cell phone to call the parents and stuff, but I think in the instance that we experienced in the past is that it's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, and they recorded any fights that break loose during the changing of the class. And we all had experienced that in the past year. And it's going to continue to be a problem. It's a time and place for everything. And I don't believe that we should continue to allow kids to do as they please, because you have to remember, we the ones that's in control. And I still believe that you need to protect the innocent and the victim. And so we vote on it tonight. I'm just one vote, but I'm not going to support that because I still believe that you need to support the innocent and the victim. A student may be going to class, minding his or her own business, going to class, doing everything that we expect for them to do. And out the blue, someone jump on them. And you got a child, 3 or 4 or 5 of them standing up there recording them. Do you think that's fair for that child to be on Facebook or YouTube by just doing what we ask him or her to do? No, it's not fair. It's not fair. So a child leave home in the morning time, we expect for them to handle their business before they get to school. But it's our responsibility to make sure that we protect that child when they're at school and make sure that they don't get abused or someone pick on them or put them on Facebook and they don't want to be on Facebook and they don't want to be on YouTube. So my vote would be no. Thank you.
Ms. Hicks.
I think the wording is slight, but I think it's significant and I think it's good because it's a mindset. Kids who maybe waiting until the teacher finishes, maybe a couple minutes early so they can get on their phones quick or in the hallways. They're just thinking about when can they get on social media and when can they check their phone. If we leave it, like the old way of instructional time, but if we change it to school day with only at lunch, they're focused on school, they're focused on their class, they might have a couple extra minutes. They'll have time in the hallway to talk to somebody in person rather than get out on their phone. So to me, it's a pretty significant mindset change for the students. So I like the new wording.
Ms. Potts.
Thank you, sir. I've been pushing for cell phones to be out of the schools for the last 10 years. Because the situation has not gotten any better the last 10 years. When we looked at for 2021, and probably even less than that, from 19 to 21, the fact that we didn't have full kids in schools in those years. As soon as they got back to school, what did they start doing? What are they doing? What they're doing is social media at home. out in the street. And when they got a beef with each other, guess where they bring it? They don't bring it to the church. They don't bring it to Hardee's, because they know the police will come get it. They don't take it to McDonald's. Where do they bring this, what they getting ready to do? They bring it to school. Now, if you're lucky, it may not happen on the bus, because it might be on different buses. But if they're on the same bus, they're gonna act stupid on the bus, because it has happened before. What we're trying to do is protect not only those that are involved in it, but those that aren't involved in it. And sometimes you got to take the pill for the medicine, because the medicine is gonna be, we got to do something about this problem we got. The parents ain't doing nothing about it. They think it's a right. I hate to tell y'all this, but there's nothing in the Constitution that says cell phone is a right. Nothing. Nothing. So I don't want to hear that. Well, I'm sorry. I know we need to contact them. What did we do before everybody got a cell phone? Did we call them up? Did we call and let our kids know? Did our kids go up and say, would you call my daddy and tell him to bring me my gym shoes, please? Is that what happened? Because we took the time to do that, because we didn't have it. We didn't have the cell phone in the school. And the cell phones are causing havoc all over this country. So if it affects your kids, I'm sorry. If your kids are involved in the misapplication of this, I'm sorry. But I am tired of looking and hearing cases all the time because something dumb happened on the phone. All the time. I showed them my gun. We had 3 or 4 of those this was in the last several months. I showed them the gun. The next thing you know, we got the police involved, we got everybody involved. Because the parents ain't got no control of what's going on. And I don't see it stopping, because somebody thinks that's a right. I hate to tell you, that's not a right. And I believe, once we do this, what we're gonna be doing, back already, trying to change the wording on this, we just discussed it last year. Now we're gonna be back trying to do that, and the same mess gonna happen all over again. Because the kids that aren't gonna do it, aren't gonna do it. The kids that are gonna do it, because they think they can get away with it. That's all it is. That's all it is. So, you know, what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do, is eliminate the problem for everybody. Those that aren't abusing it, and those that don't. And don't tell me everybody ain't abusing it, because that's a lie. Everybody's abusing. The kids are sitting there doing test exams. I heard this 5, 6 years ago, before COVID, looking at the answers. So they can Google it up on Google, right in the middle of the test. So how is that gonna be right for the kids that ain't got a cell phone in school? Oh, that's just tough. That's just the way they have to live, I guess. And how come we get 5 or 6, 10 or 15 different versions of a fight because we got 10 or 15 people? And it's supposed to be a charge for that. It's supposed to be a charge, isn't it, Mike? For filming a fight? Because that's when you filming a fight, when you filming somebody under 18, that's a federal offense when you putting it on Facebook. Don't go and do it and put it on Facebook and see what happened to you. Go and do it. Go and do it.
I actually like it when they record the fights. I mean, I don't know why they started it, but that's proof right there of what they've done.
Yeah.
And to see some of the fights, it's aggressive. And, okay, 2 kids got in a fight. Okay, no big deal. You see a video, it makes a world of difference. I think it's more of a protection to the students than it is a harm.
But you got, our attitude is, when there's a fight, you're supposed to go in the other direction, right?
Well, I like to rebut that because I don't believe that, what about the child?
Right.
It's not good for the child to get beat up and be out there on Facebook. That's why we spend thousands that we are spending thousands of dollars buying cameras to go inside that school so we can record stuff like that, not for a child to record it and place it out on social media. Because once you hit that send button, it ain't coming back.
We got a motion on the floor and a second. Tammy, would you repeat the motion, please?
The motion is to not approve the change.
To not approve the change. Motion is not approve the change. And we had a second? Mr. McDowell, was the second?
Can I clarify, does that include all the last 3 paragraphs on the bottom as well?
To not include, is that correct? The motion?
It's to not approve.
To not approve the, okay? To not approve any of these changes. That's the motion on the floor. We have a second. Can we do a roll call vote, please, ma'am?
District 1, Ms. Fraley?
I'm still going to have to vote no because of the must turn it off, must be out of sight. That's just not going to happen in a classroom, I'm sorry. So, no.
District 2, Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
District 3, Mrs. Hicks?
No.
District 4, Mr. Camp?
No.
District 5, Mr. Edmonds?
No.
District 6, Mrs. Shallow? Yes. District 7, Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
District 8, Mr. Fox?
Nope.
3, 2, 5.
Could I make a motion to approve the recommended changes?
A motion to approve the recommended changes?
As they are, yeah. 21.
Is there a second?
You have to have a motion to approve it now. I think you would.
We had a motion to approve the changes. Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion is failed.
I have one other question, if I may.
Yes, ma'am?
Previously, several months ago, I brought forward a couple of changes to the code of conduct. One of them was talking about aggravating factors for discrimination against race, sex, and special needs. Is that something that was discussed to be by administration?
Has not had any discussion on that. When was that brought forward?
It was in a meeting, I don't know, last fall. I can send you the details, but it was specifically for,
I'll be happy to have that discussion.
yeah, under the
But-
special requirements for out-of-school suspension and expulsion. It talks about aggravating factors. I just recommended that we put some examples in there of what those aggravating factors are, including discrimination and specifically acts against special needs students.
Will you
So if that's-
direct me to the page?
14.
Which paragraph is it?
The first bullet.
So just so I'm clear, you want examples of what the aggravating factors are?
Correct. Including the discrimination items, and using the code. You can use the language from the code, but include in there special needs students. And also the level 3 summary, or the level 3 repercussions. It says level 3 rule violations are more severe in nature and may support long-term suspension, expulsion. The principal may impose a short-term suspension of 10 days or less. Level 3, if you can take a look at that, these are the second highest level, and I don't think we should allow a shorter suspension for those. I think there should be a mandatory item, so if you can take a look at that and bring it forward later, if you agree.
Yeah, I think that's a board decision if they want to change the language on level 3. I have not received a request from the schools to make that change, but certainly the board can give that direction.
Can some of these be done in-house suspension to elementary school?
Yeah, so and that's what makes a student code of conduct somewhat difficult, because it's written for K-12, it's not written strictly for secondary, so there are some provisions for K-3 students in here as well to be treated differently.
All right, so level 3 right now includes firearms, look-alike firearms, assault on a student, dangerous instruments, gang and gang-related activity. I don't see any circumstance where we would allow or should allow a short-term suspension or no suspension for that type of activity. So I would make a motion that we strike out the second sentence under level 3 that says the principal may impose a short-term suspension of 10 days or less.
Is that it?
Mr.
You gotta be
Mr.
careful, 'cause
Camp.
an elementary school kid brings a Nerf gun and you're gonna expel him?
Right now, they come to us.
Oh, right, I mean, I thought you were saying like they would need to come. I thought you were saying like they have to immediately be expelled.
So we had to be cautious too, Dr. Huskin, not to cut across you, but the maximum any principal can do is 10 days. So if we remove that statement altogether, then they can't even do the 10 days. They would have to bring every single thing to myself or the board. Perhaps a shift in wording, the principal shall impose a short-term suspension of up to 10 days or something like that. Or the whole 10 days, still need to give the principal some ability to do that suspension.
If you would like to discuss it as administration and come to us, I have an issue with that sentence because it allows, if a student brings a gun to school, regardless of grade, it could be a 12th grader, this right now, the policy says that the principal can give them less than 10 days. I don't agree with that, so if there's different wording that you want to look at, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and I think I would like the opportunity to talk to those building leaders to see what may be a better way to word that. Because I certainly understand your point that we don't want to be taking level 3 violations, anything other than very serious. And what I've seen from our folks is that they do, and typically they land in school board hearings. But let me, if I may, bring that back on the 26th with some recommendations from those folks. And I know some are out of town and different things, but I should be able to connect with them.
So, Mr. Camp?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask Mr. Lewis a question?
Sure can.
So are you going to be investigating these items and then bringing them back to us in July? So we can make a decision on what needs to be
Hopefully, maybe
done?
we could do it at the end of this month so that we can finalize.
Okay, so it'd be the
this-
26th, maybe?
Yeah, yes, that would be
Okay.
my hope. Because we have to have these printed and ready for August, so that takes time to make that happen. But I think that I can bring these back to you guys that you've asked for.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Chair, I got a question or comment.
What's possible?
We need to make sure that regardless of whether administration and people that supposed to be carrying these things out, because it's apparent to me that some folks do it and some folks don't. And we need to make sure they understand that if we pass it, we expect it to be carried out. If it's not carried out, we're gonna have to instruct the superintendent to do something about it. Because we're not just making these things just to make them, we're making because we're trying to make things better for our kids, period. You know, person may dislike it, I'm sorry, but the thing about it, we got to do this better for our kids, so, you know, we need to do that, because it seems like there's been a lack of getting it done, you know. Well, it's all right to bring them, because they, you know, kids got, they 15, they can drive it, they need to have one of those and one. No, they don't need to have no mace in school, period, you know, just because they're 14. We can't say it's okay to bring it and leave it on the school ground, because that would be hypocritical on our part. We said not on school. How would we do that? So I would suggest to Superintendent and you make sure our people understand what this means. That means, if we said no, that means no. You know, ain't no ifs and ands about that. That's why what she's doing, she's making sure that we don't leave it up to somebody's discretion. We need to make the policy so it can be carried out. Because there's a reason for that.
Anything else, Mr. Lewis?
No, sir. I just, we'll say that have daily and sometimes weekly conversations on interpretations of the code, and I'm unaware of any level 3 violation that was not a long-term suspension. I mean, these folks are there on the front lines. They try to do it the right way. They consult with others when they need it, whether it be myself, Superintendent, Mr. Davis, whoever. They're enforcing this code, and if there's shifts in the code, my message would be quite clear to them as we enter into leadership meetings this summer that we're going to enforce what it says to the T. So, but they're doing a good job out there. I mean, I talk to these folks nearly daily.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you.
VSBA May 2023 updates. First read, Mr. Davis.
Mr. Chair, Dr. Huskin, school board members, good evening. Included in your packet, you'll find the May VSBA updates. I'm not going to spend time to go through all these. We have a total of 47 for this distribution. This is for your information purposes tonight. There's no action that is needed. We will come back next month with the final version. And basically, to make a long story short, the reason for the number of updates to coincide with the amendments and the changes for the Code of Virginia. So as a reminder, if you see a strike through, those are the items that are being deleted, and if they're underlined, those are items that will be added to the respective policy.
Are these changes specifically requested by VSBA, or are there also locally requested policy changes?
For the most part, these are requested by VSBA, but there are some that coincide with some procedures and regulations that we have to do throughout the school division, and those will be carried out similar to what has been done in previous policies. So no actions needed tonight. We'll come back next month with the final version of this.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next, we have Dr. Buffalo with a step of wage increases.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I wanted to bring forward just some brief information on unpacking some budget changes for next year that were adopted by the Board of Supervisors, and some of the information that was discussed during the Board of Supervisors meeting. Just, you have a very short packet here with budget adjustments. As you will recall, in February, the governor's budget we presented, and it was approved by the board, that included a 5% increase for all employees. That was the budget that we submitted to the Board of Supervisors for approval. And then the preliminary budget that was approved was our working outline for us to start moving forward with planning for the next school year, which included salary increases, pay table increases, and the like. On June 6th, during the Board of Supervisors meeting, an alternate budget, which is referred to as the skinny budget or the HB 15, the House budget 1400. In this budget, it calls for a significant decrease from what we had presented to the board and asked for approval. As you can see, it's about $775,000 less. The state decrease is $329,949. And the local, which is the Halifax portion, is $445,724. So at this meeting at the Board of Supervisors, this was adopted until further notice. So we will have to restructure some of what our plans were for the coming school year should this stay. Now, the final decision by the governor's budget is not until probably July. So they keep pushing out when they're going to come to their actual numbers. So all we can do is our best at what we're given. So at this time, it is recommended by the Board of Supervisors that we work with the HB 14 skinny budget. So that's our decrease that we're seeing there. So in a separate subject, we did present the 5% increase, which even in the skinny budget, we will be able to meet for all employees based on where they are currently in their pay scale. The pay tables are adjusted annually based on what is approved in the budget. So the budget, once that was approved, we immediately went and took every employee and added 5% to where they were. So the steps are related to an employee's experience. When they're brought in on board, they're assigned a step to be paid at, and that correlates to the pay table. Then every year, their number goes up. The wage piece of that step has to be part of our budget. So we have to budget what we're going to increase. And this year it was just a 5%. The next table is just an example of how we implemented the 5% increase. So teacher at 2022-23 school year, if they were at a 0, they're going to advance forward to a level 1 with a 5% increase. So that puts you at a higher rate of pay at 5% increase. And so on. So first we roll you, and then we roll you with the 5%, and so then your pay table is the next step. We've released to you all the pay tables that we're presenting tonight. You should have been able to get them in your packet. And as you can see, they are all a 5% increase from what they were last year. And just as a note, in addition to the 5% increase, another area of compensation, which I echoed in our budget presentation, is healthcare costs, which the employer this year, us, we absorbed the increase in premium. So that was a total of 9.9% increase across the board for the employer portion, and we did not add that to any employee. So we held all employees harmless of that benefit increase. And that, yes, do you have any questions?
Can you outline the cost for just the normal step, just the 5%, and then the step plus the 5%?
Could you repeat that one more time?
Yes, can you give us the total amount for just the normal step? What that would be on an annual basis, the 5%, and then what it would be for the step plus 5%? What totals are we talking about for employee salary changes?
I didn't bring my numbers with me for the exact totals. For just the step increase, we were looking, if we round their numbers to about $2 million, is just under $2 million.
So you provided some information by email, but I
Yes.
wasn't able to understand all of it. One of them had the step increase of 1.5 million, and then the 5% was 1.8 million, for a total of 3.3 million for the year. But your spreadsheet had 2 columns, 5% for the salary increase, and then the step plus 5%. And it's showing the salary increase of just the 5% at 1.7, and the step plus 5% at 2 million even. So it's a pretty big difference. So is the step plus 5, 2 million increase, or is it,
So
with our numbers?
if you'll look at that spreadsheet, I put an average. I based it on an average of 4% for the step increase, which I know it's been echoed that it's 2%, but that is not exactly correct across all tables, including within some of the tables themselves. It can average anywhere from 3 to 6, depending on where you're looking. So I took an average of 4%, and just note that my initial looking at this was for a 5% increase with no knowledge of any other discussions in the past. So we only looked at the 5%. And within this last week, we have started computing how much it would have been actual. So we're going line by line still for every person, because as you know, they're all over the place in steps, so I can't give you an exact number at this moment, but we are working to get you those numbers.
And who approved just doing the 5% and not including the steps? Because the school board approved the steps last year, and we published it out and said, these
So-
are the steps, and then in addition to that, we approved 5%. Our expectation would be that 5% would be added to the scales, and that would be the update. I was not aware that steps were not going to be implemented.
And I was not aware that there was a 2% increase at the time of doing the work here. We presented a 5%, and I still didn't hear a conversation about the step increases at that time, so I did not have that information, which I did not. I mean, if you go back, we don't have the funding to do all employees at essentially 7 to 8%, maybe even 9%, depending on where they are.
Okay, so last fall, we had a specific discussion about elementary schools. We do not need to close elementary schools because we can fully fund our salary for the steps going forward. We talked about the 5%. We said we have it in the budget. We talked about the insurance increase of $700,000. Hey, we're below budget. We budgeted for $1 million. We can pay this too. Nowhere was it ever brought forward to say, hey, we can't afford to pay the steps. We're only doing 5%.
Oh, but we, honestly, we only were planning for the, I mean, okay, so I think this piece about the steps, really, where I think all of this large level of confusion potentially happened when you all retracted. Again, I don't know, because I feel like maybe I either I missed it, truly, because maybe when the giant pay raises were retracted and the scales were rebuilt, because to guarantee a step every single year is a guaranteed 2 million. Like you're now saying to your employees, no matter what the Virginia legislature does or what our locality does, we're promising a $2 million increase no matter what. And I don't know that you all would have an understanding that that's a guarantee going forward until. And so we were operating under just a straight 5% to the entire scale. So a step plus 5 is essentially a 7. And so I'm truly here telling you that the finance folks never came to me with a 7, and I don't know that was ever part of a conversation. So if you all had an understanding that it was really a 2 plus a 5, with that making it a 7, we were never all on the same page. Because to promise an employee group a $2 million guarantee every year, not knowing what your legislature is going to do or your locality is going to do, I don't think you could ever say yes to that going forward. That's not sustainable.
I guess I would like to go on record saying a couple of things. I would have definitely supported only the 5%, especially when we consider that we also absorb the increase in healthcare, and that's substantial. I don't think people always understand how substantial that is as far as the overall cost. I guess if I have a regret or if I could turn back the clock, I just wish we would have had during the budget process the conversation on the steps, moving forward, because I do think there is a large percentage of us on the board who anticipated that the step was going to be given plus the 5%. So, if I have a regret, I wish we would have had that conversation as maybe a bullet or somewhere during the budget meetings and budget discussions, just so we would have all been on the same page and could have handled the volume of telephone calls and emails and everything we may have received. As a board member, that did, I only speak for myself, it did put me in an awkward spot when I started receiving some of those calls with no, I guess, explanation that I could offer up front. But, for the record, had I been voting on 5% or 5% plus the step, with knowledge that what we were doing for the insurance, I would have voted only for the 5%.
Sure.
It was just the fact that, I don't think we fully understood that the step was not going to be part of the discussion, because it normally is part of the discussion. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong when I say that last part.
I truly did not know that the step was, help me clarify, Karen, because I truly did not know that the step was part of the process. And I feel like that was a carryover from that initial I call it the three-legged stool of close the schools, put the steps in, and that whole thing that got retracted. I felt like that was part of getting the piece that got retracted, and then you all built those new scales that you had rebuilt. And the step, I thought it was just a straight 5% in the budget that we are operating under right now, the one that we're closing out. That was a straight 5%. That wasn't a step plus 5. That was a straight 5% in what was built in this current budget. That one doesn't have steps in it.
Right, and that was my understanding as well.
Yeah, that's not a step.
So we took the guidance of the governor's budget at 5%, and we spread it over all employees. And again, I didn't know. I wasn't here. So that's that. I mean,
Question.
yep.
So how do we get to a step?
It really has to be built into the budget. I mean, where I came from, they were frozen for eight years. You didn't move. Then we started implementing percent raises. And your years of experience were tracked, and then you got a percent raise. So that's how I'm used to doing it. Steps have never been increased under where I've been. It's always been a percent increase, and it's because of funding. Funding is so variable and often constrained. So to guarantee a step increase every year, it's an unresponsible promise that may or may not be able to be kept.
Well, I think it was a breakdown in communication somewhere along the way. Because my recollection is that we had a meeting with the Board of Supervisors over a year ago, and some tough decision was going to have to be made. And one of those tough decisions that was going to have to be made was close down a couple of schools, elementary schools, and save money on positions. And that's how we was going to come up with some of the funding, a majority of the funding, to fund that step increase.
Had I known that had I known those steps and that we were gonna have to find $2 million a year, which it's still not there in closing schools. That $2 million a year is still, it doesn't exist by doing that. It doesn't. An extra $2 million a year is not in this budget, and it's certainly not in this skinny budget.
Well, what this board gonna have to decide is, how do we get to that step? And what decision are we gonna make to get to that step? What sacrifices are we gonna make to get to that step? Because we promised steps over a year ago. We promised that to our staff. We said that we made a promise to the Board of Supervisors. And that's something that we need to look at. How do we get to that step? And that's something that we need to be looking at, taking a very serious, hard look at, because that's what we said we were going to do. And that's what we thought that we were going to get this year, but we didn't. So a decision going to have to be made is, how are we going to get to that step? What we're going to eliminate to get to that step? Because something going to have to be eliminated. If we want to implement what we said we was going to implement to the staff in the school system here in Halifax County and to the Board of Supervisors, we're going to have to make a tough decision as how we're going to get to that step. Because we said we were going to get to that step.
I'm still kind of confused. It's like, putting the cart before the horse again. We didn't know what we were going to get. The 5%, yes, I would have voted for it in a minute. But we hired this lady to come here to figure our budget out so we could fit people on steps. And now, we're not giving our employees the steps. Yes, we got to get down and figure out how we're going to give these employees these steps because they were expecting. That's a bad way to put it, but, we voted for it. So we're going to have to do some digging and try to figure out what do we have to do to get these people on these steps because it's not right. That's just like slapping them in the face. We're going to lose a lot of people because of it. And I hate to see that happen. So, we're going to have to dig hard.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Potts.
First of all, I'm really happy to hear that some of you are aware that we got a step program and hasn't been doing what it's supposed to be doing. That's what's been going on. We did this over 2 years ago with the Board of Supervisors giving us some money to get it done. And when they gave us this money, we were told explicitly that we weren't gonna get no more. That's what they did. They said we had it, but we were supposed to use that money to take care of the step program. In addition to that, we were told by the past superintendent that we needed to do certain things in order to be able to get that money. And pupil ratio was part of it, but the other part was closing those schools down to accommodate the step. And what I mean by that, we wouldn't have had the express phase of pupil transportation because we'd have had all the kids coming to one school. We wouldn't have had the cost of doing all this maintenance we gotta do to those 2 schools. But we had a plan where we could do 2 or 3 schools. And we just found out a couple of months ago that we only gonna do 1 school as far as, taking care of it, as far as putting things up. But the plan that Mark put out had all 3 schools on there, and it would have given us the money to do that. But I was told in this board meeting by Dr. B that was wrong. But it can't be wrong because it's coming out to be true, because now we got those expenses on there that we wouldn't have had if we'd have built the school. We had enough money back then to build the high school and build elementary school. We didn't do it. We kept procrastinating. Now we up $25, $30 million. You know, we could have got a new elementary school built and still had enough money to build the high school. But we procrastinated right on out the ballpark. So, I don't know why y'all didn't know, but maybe y'all didn't ask nobody. But I knew about the steps. She knew about the steps. He knew. So apparently, miscommunication is putting it mild. It was a big blunder. That's exactly what it was. Because what we should have done, we should have made extremely functional that we're gonna take care of our teachers, and we didn't do that. What Fred is saying, we need to make sure that we take care of our teachers. Now, that 5% that we got, they ain't had nothing to do with our budget. That 5% came out of the sky. The governor gave us that. That had nothing to do with our budget. All we did is add it in there because the teachers were gonna get that. Where we made the mistake, we didn't include the step for our teachers. We haven't even talked about the rest of the personnel. The step was just include the teachers, but it was supposed to do everybody. And that's what I came up with because I looked at it and I'm going, it's surprising that we short $700,000 and we short $700,000 on this letter we got saying that because of these two expenses, we $700,000 short. And here we are $700,000 short because Board of Supervisors cut us $300,000. I'm sorry, $400,000. State revenue got cut for, and we still don't know what they're gonna get because they haven't closed it out yet. We don't know if they're gonna not give us that $15,000 or gonna give us that $400,000. We don't know what we're gonna get because we still out in limbo. And it's crazy. But apparently we must have forgotten we supposed to do the stuff because that same night that we had the joint meeting of the Board of Supervisors and the Board of Education, we said we were gonna do that. And I said then, we need to get going on getting these schools closed, because that's how we were going to pay for that. And lo and behold, we didn't do that. So, whose fault is it? I'll let y'all figure that out. I'm looking at now, how we gonna do that? Freddie said, we got to come up with the money. I wanna know where we're gonna come up with the money. I wanna know where we're gonna, because we're already $700,000 short of what we just got this letter in the mail. I'm gonna talk about that in a few minutes too, because I think that was done wrong. So, I'm gonna mention that, but we should have known. The people in charge of this should have known that we had a step program here. I can't help what they were doing at other schools. We should have found out that we had a step program here, and that this step program is being there. And for some reason, did we get an email with our letters that sent out to our people this year that got that and said the reason we went, oh, we got our letter? Oh, okay, thank you. What did the email say? The email gave an implication that, they knew about the step, but yet we didn't have the money to do anything about it. But the board never talked about it. When y'all talking about it? When you talking about it, Jeff?
Monday.
We ain't talking about it. No.
That was Monday.
When we talking about it? We haven't talked about the step. So now we find out we ain't got money.
It's not that, Mr. Potts, I'm not trying to interrupt you, sir, but here's the thing. When you all hired the lady from Mecklenburg to come in and do your pay scales, when she left and I came in July 1, and then Dr. Buckley was hired and Ms. Borman came in, there was not a conversation. When I tell you there were not files left for us, there was not information left about that. She set up pay scales with years of experience steps, but there was not information left that said, and next year, the pay scales were established, and a 5% across the board raise was given to every employee last year, as per the governor's indication for last year. There was not information left that said, and next year, the plan is that there will be a 2% step increase plus whatever the governor's mandate is. Because then we certainly would have built a 7% budget back in the budget season when we were doing all of that. So there just wasn't information left for us when that consultant lady built those scales and built all of that information going forward. So this was not intentional, and we didn't go spend the money somewhere else, not planning for this. We just didn't know.
I know we just spent somewhere else because we need more money. The thing that gets me is the fact that, these people came in and knew, the people that were still working here knew about the step. Did they have any input in what was going on? They knew about it. Everybody didn't leave here. There was a few leave. Why didn't they let the people in power know that, hey, we need to be looking at a step increase? I'm not putting the blame on them, but at least communication would have been there. At least they would have said, hey, y'all gonna step, okay, well, maybe we need to look at that. That didn't occur. So now, we got teachers, and I'm not gonna use the word I wanna use because I'm not gonna use it. But the thing about it, we got teachers mad because they didn't get the step. And the bottom line is, we don't come up with something, we're gonna lose some teachers this year. Because Mecklenburg gives us $7,000 bonus sign up. We're giving $3,000 to bus drivers signing up. How we gonna compete with that? We can't even give people step they deserve.
Mr. Potts, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Mr. Camp, can I ask a question? Thank you. Usually, when increases are given, are they just given to teachers usually? Or is everyone in a particular school division given a raise each year based on whatever criterion there is? Or is it just the 5% is going to teachers?
So each year will be contingent on the constraints of the budget. As you know, the governor's budget is an SOQ 5%, which is only a third of our staff.
And what third is that?
It would include teachers and,
Not every teacher.
It's
It
not
includes
every
the ones
teacher.
that the governor considers necessary.
Right.
We employ way more than what the
Right.
bare minimum includes, which means that we, as a locality, have to fund the rest.
Okay, so the 5% that is out there to be given, I'm trying to understand this, because, I mean, this is too big for me. The 5% that is given, it's given to everyone in the school division. That means principals, custodians, parapros, cafeteria workers who work for us, secretaries, bus drivers, and teachers.
that's correct.
Is that normally the way the money from the governor comes out?
No.
Okay, again, who gets that money?
Gets the money?
Who usually gets that money from the governor? Or not the governor, from our state? You said it's only a certain group of people that get that raise? It's not everybody.
You don't normally choose among you. When you all can choose, you all chose as a board to do a 5% across the entire school division. You
For
voted
everyone.
For everyone, when you adopted, that's what Dr. Buckley presented in her budget, and that's what we took to the Board of Supervisors, and that's what was approved.
Right.
Okay.
That wasn't mandatory. I think that was.
That wasn't mandatory from the
No,
state.
it isn't
That was
mandatory.
That's not something that
It's at the
usually
discretion of the
That was
board.
a yes and.
Yes.
Because we don't want to pick between our employees and say, you get 5% and you get 3% and you get
That's
2%.
right.
We just want it to be
fair and equitable across all employee groups.
That's correct.
Okay.
We make the decision to make up the difference,
Yes,
which is only fair.
right,
So, you know,
That's right.
so we don't single out
That's right.
employees.
right,
So we gave beyond what was required.
yes.
That is correct.
Yes.
I think that was a question, right, Ms. Fraser?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mr. Lloyd.
But do we have to make up the difference on that 5%?
Yes.
Yes, so we take the,
Leave it out.
we do.
A lot.
I think it comes down to if the salary scales had been brought to the board before they were changed, implemented, and published on the website, we would have had this discussion. The school board has to approve the pay scales. They were adjusted without our knowledge, and I know you said you added the 5%, but you added the 5% to year one and made that the new year two. That's changing the pay scales. I'm not trying to point fingers, because this is a group effort here. I mean, our staff is pretty much still the same. There's still the 8 of us. We went through HELL last year with these pay scales.
Mildly.
We all, I mean, we spent hours upon hours, months working on this, and now we turn around and, oh, there's pay scales? Well, there's steps? We made a commitment. We made a commitment to our staff. We said, these are the steps. We have finally fixed the pay scale in Halifax County. Yes, we celebrated, and now we're saying, oh, no, you don't get the step. We didn't know you had a step, or it's not in the budget. If we look at the budget over the last 3 years, 21-22 was $68 million. 22-23 was $76 million. 23-24 was $81 million. We've gone up $13 million in the last 2 years. The skinny budget, the 83, whatever, 81.3, is the same amount that they gave us back in December, 81,308,029. So they must have increased it and then brought it back down, but the December numbers that we were given was 81.3. I don't see how we cannot do a step. If it had come to us before, I might have said, yeah, the 5%, we make sure everyone gets 5%, but we didn't do that. So the expectation was that they get a step, they get the 5%. I think we need to honor that commitment, and I would make a motion that we find the money and do the step plus the 5% as we had expected.
May I interject just one point? A large portion of the budget is ESSER funds, which we cannot use as our pay step increase. So that's 16 million of that. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware. Okay.
And there's other funds in there that have to be used for specific purposes, but the point is still, we've gone up 13 million in the last 2 years. If we can't find the money to spend 3 million on employees, because that's what we said we were gonna do, then we have a bigger problem than that. I'm all for tightening the belt. I mean, you've seen it. I got not nice emails for not approving the insurance stuff, but that wasn't a commitment. This we committed. I don't see how we cannot do it.
Ms. Gill, can I say one more
Yes.
thing? Then I'll be done. I'm gonna be the first to say that I blame myself because I'm a part of this board. And I'm not gonna blame the superintendent, I'm not gonna blame the finance director. I'm gonna blame the board. Because as I said earlier, the buck start with us and end with us. And it was our responsibility to make sure that the new superintendent and the finance director knew what we planned on doing and what we had promised the workers here at the school system, inside the school system. And they didn't know. And it was our responsibility as a school board to make sure that we let them know what we expect for them to do with the steps. And we didn't do that. At least I didn't do it. So I'm on the bus and I made a mistake because I'm part of the bus that helped driving the bus. So I made that mistake. I can't speak for no one else up here because a leader got to lead when they're right and they got to realize when they're wrong. And we did not let the new superintendents so the newspaper, I want to make sure you put this in the paper. It's not the superintendent's fault and it's not the finance department's fault because they just didn't know. And we should have let them know what we had promised the people here at the school system. So what we need to do is, like I said earlier, now we need to let them know. Now they know. Now they know. So how do we get to that point? How do we get this money? You know, how we get to this money? And like I said, it's gonna be some tough decisions. But like Ms. Shotwell said, that's a promise that we made. So how do we get to that point? And now it's y'all responsibility to come back to us and tell us how do we get to that point and let us make the decision whether we're willing to do it or whether we're not gonna do it and go from there. I hate for us to make a decision that we don't even know if the money there or not. You know, I mean, we tell them to go do something and where do we get the money from? You know, we can't write a blank check. So we got to make sure we got some money now if we get the right checks. So I think that we need to tell them to go back to the drawing table and tell us how much money they can come up with. And then we can make a decision from there. Now, that's just my opinion. That's all I'm going to say, Mr. Kemp.
Thank you. Got a motion on the floor. Tammy, what is that again? If you, or Lacey, can you rephrase that, repeat it for us?
To authorize the step plus 5%.
Motion on the floor to authorize a step plus 5%. We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Do we need to look at the budget to see where that money comes from before we can approve something? Otherwise, we're just pulling money that we don't have in line items.
Well,
I think that was a recommendation of Mr. Edmonds. I don't want to restate what he said, but that's what I understood Mr. Edmonds to say. Is that correct, Mr. Edmonds?
Yeah, but Ms. Shotwell held a motion on the floor.
Okay.
Sorry, Ms. Shotwell.
We talked earlier tonight about where that 4 million would come from for the high school, right? So we don't know that, but one option was, there was 2 million that came from the state for
Facilities, and that is untouchable other than facility use, improvement of facilities.
So it could be high school or elementary schools?
Yes.
Okay, and then the other pot of money that's untouched that we might not have permission for is almost 4 million in the Board of Supervisors carryover from the last few years. Okay, but we don't have permission to use that right now. We would have to go to them with a specific
Right, there would
request.
have to be a process for that.
Right, okay, thanks.
So as part of discussion, so simply, I mean, I think what I heard Mr. Edmonds say and what I've heard Ms. Hicks say is that we don't know where that money would come from if we vote and pass this motion. I mean, the money may not be there. So, I mean, obviously, it's hard for me to support a motion if we don't know if we have the funds that we are authorizing. I mean, I think that would be reckless on our part. I would maybe better support someone doing a further investigation to see if there are pots of money that maybe could be moved to accommodate the step increase. And then, you know, I think we could be a little bit more fiscally responsible and we could, you know, at that point, review the report, and if the funds are there, then maybe we then could implement it. But it would be difficult for me personally to support a motion when we don't know where we would find those pots of money. I mean, it's not a small pot. This is a significant amount of money. We're talking, what, $3 million, if I'm not mistaken? From what I heard, Ms. Buckler said earlier, that was not identified
That's an
yet.
averaged number, so we have to go, like I said, we're still working on what the actual would be.
Yes, that makes me a little nervous. We don't know what the actual number would be.
Right.
I mean, 1.5 could be the bare minimum of that. It may be double that once we get investigated. So again, I just think without knowing that information, it would be difficult for me to support that motion. I'm not opposed necessarily to the step increase, but I'm opposed to passing a motion that we don't know where the money would come from.
Can we amend the motion to say, depending on potential funding?
I think if we commit, we can find $1.5 million.
I mean, we got 4 million to carry over now. The board of supervisors asked us to fix this problem. And we have fixed it. So we're gonna have to go back to the board of supervisors and say, look, we need this much to finish this step process out. Let's do it, get it done.
I don't think we even need to go to them. I mean,
Well, I mean, we're gonna have to get that permission to get that.
Absolutely.
So,
I would prefer to keep the motion. If it doesn't pass, then we can do a motion to table it and let them do the investigation. But, I mean, that's putting on the employees. Hey, we screwed up, sorry, but, you know, let us take some time and see if we can figure it out. Or we can commit to fixing it, and I'm sure $1.5 million, I'm pretty sure someone can find that in the budget. I could probably find that in the budget.
Mr. Lloyd. Mr. Lloyd.
And I certainly hear you, Ms. Shotwell, and normally you and I are in agreement on most issues. You know, and I certainly believe we should take care of employees, and I don't think we've neglected that responsibility whatsoever. We gave 5% when even 5% wasn't required across the board. We committed 5% to everyone. We absorbed the healthcare cost, which we had no responsibility to do, and probably not done outside of the field of education commonly. So, I mean, I think we have definitely made an investment in protecting the employees. I think we put a sound scale in place, and that doesn't, the fact that we do not move a step this year doesn't replace the fact that we now have sound scales in place. It's unfortunately, the climate did not allow this one time to give a step. And again, I'm not opposed to the step, but I certainly understand that there will be times where financially you just cannot do that. You hope that's not often, and but I mean, there will be times when unfortunately the pots of money are just not there. So, again, I'm just, as part of the discussion, I would just state that I would much prefer us see us investigate it, and if need be, I don't mind making that alternative motion if the initial motion does not pass.
May I ask Ms. Buckley one clarifying question? Because we don't have a final budget from the state, there is one version of the budget out there that also has a 7%. Could we potentially be in a situation where the governor comes back, or the state budget comes back, that then has us a mandated 7%, and then we have to do a step and a 7?
That's correct.
Okay, and then if we then do a 5, then we're not in compliance, and we could be in a situation where we have to send money back.
Yeah.
So we went on the conservative side by doing a straight 5. That's part of the reason why we went on the conservative, not by adopting a straight 5. So on the off chance that they came back and the adopted budget was a 7, then we could dig in and try to scramble and find that other. I'm sort of remembering part of that process.
Yeah.
But the whole step piece, I get it, and going forward,
Yeah.
we will figure that out, I get that, but we could be in a real mess if the state comes back and says, we've adopted the 7.
Yes.
If some politicians decide, I want to look like heroes this year and mandate a 7, and then on top of that, we do a step and a 7.
Right. Right.
I don't know where we would find that.
And that's the challenge this year that's unique.
Yeah.
We've
By
got
not
7
knowing this late in the
versions.
cycle, by just
Yeah.
not knowing what the numbers
Yeah.
are. And being asked to operate on the least numbers.
Yes.
We're in a pickle.
That is correct.
We are in a pickle.
Have we got a second?
Mr. Potts, second.
Could we repeat the motion again, please?
I have a question before we do that. 5% plus two more, state come back and give us two more.
They wouldn't give us the full amount. They give us about enough to cover a third of our employees. And we would have to then come up with the rest.
Right. So it wouldn't be, if we decide to give the employees a rest, we just gave them a rest based on what we decide, right?
Well, if the governor comes back and mandates 7, then we would have to give back, there's certain matches that if you don't do what they sort of mandate, it's called a local required effort. And you would have to give back portions of the money. If you don't do what they mandate that you do, you have to send it back. That's why we have operated on the local.
5% for everybody, that's what you're saying.
Yes,
So if they did the 7%, then that would have to be for everybody.
but they only send you SOQ. They only send you enough to cover the SOQ positions that they fund. So we have to come up with the rest. Plus the step is what y'all are voting
And
on.
if we don't do that, then we're not compliant, so they're gonna take that back and not take all of it back.
They would take they would take whatever they sent back. And we rely on that to cover at least the third of it, which is a significant
The
portion.
first 5, they'll take some of that back and.
Well, it's whatever number. They're either gonna go with 5 or 7. They haven't really officially
I
decided.
know what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
if we decide not to do that, and decide to use that money for something else.
Oh, we can't do that.
We can't use it for something else, so.
Oh, no. Mm-mm.
But not using it, then we're gonna give ourselves that much money.
We have to use it for salary. If they send it for salary, we have to use it for salary.
For everybody.
For the ones that they send it for, yes.
I want to say something. I'm for, giving the staff, the teachers, and everybody the raise, because just a little bit of history, on that stage, on November the 27th, that year, we talked about giving teachers only a raise, okay? We were going to use $3 million or $4 million from the Board of Supervisors to kind of, get that done. Then we were going to come up with a plan to become more efficient, okay? So that's when Mark we went through the public, going to the schools, and he was talking to us about, closing schools, whether 1, 2, or 3. Then that night, it was voted to give the raise to everyone, not just the teachers, but everyone. And that was that was not what was intended before we walked in that room. But it was some communication, I think it was miscommunication. And as a result of that, I'm going to say this, that night, the superintendent that we had at the time resigned. Okay, he resigned after that meeting. Now, I'm thinking out loud here, okay? Because I want to give the employees the raise too, but I also got a checkbook I got to look at, when I'm writing my checks, and want to make sure I got money for it. Okay, so then we had the big fiasco with all the salaries that we gave the employees for 6 months. Then we had to snatch them back. So then we had Ms. Peffer come in and do all these salaries. Well, all the salaries and all the scales. Well, we've never had a scale. And as a matter of fact, I've heard you say pay tables, which is what they are, because I've had that same instance happen to me when I was the finance director, okay? The teacher was going from 29 to 30. She was going to get $3,000 more. But guess what? We hadn't voted on year 30, or the board at the time. I was the finance director. I had nothing to do with it, see? But it's not a scale. It's not a scale. Never has been. I'm just saying, because it's got to be voted upon, okay? And in this year, it has not been done. It has not been done. We did not vote on it. We got them. We got them, and, you know, Ms. Pfeffer came into a super job. And, I want nothing more than to give everybody this step increase. But I mean, not knowing where the money is gonna come from, I mean, I cannot conservatively, as an accountant, do that. I can't do that. I'm sorry, I can't. So, I'm positive here, but checkbook, check it.
Mr. Camp, can I ask Dr.
Please.
Bucklew a question?
Please.
Dr. Bucklew, what is this $4 million again? Refresh my memory that you're talking about, that the Board of Supervisors has for us. What is that money?
So the 4 million is our responsibility for building the high school.
Okay.
We have to show that we have our interest in at $4 million. That's their requirement from us.
Okay, so that money can only be used for the high school,
Which money?
the 4 million?
So, no, we were going to talk a little more about this on our January 26th closeout meeting of what is the best use of our remaining funds.
Okay.
So that was one of the items on the list for the facilities is a $2 million line,
Okay,
and there's carryover at the Board of Supervisors. That's a little over 3 million.
okay.
So those are the conversations that are coming.
But you know, these salaries, I'm gonna compare the salary with the high school, we're in the same boat. We really don't know where the money's coming from with the high school. So we really don't know where the money's coming from to do these steps. Y'all have faith? I think we really-
Mr. Camp, can I call
Yeah.
for a
Yes.
vote, or a roll call vote, so
Yes.
we can move on?
District 1, Ms. Braylon?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to go along with Mr. Camp and say no.
District 2, Mr. Boyd?
No.
District 3, Mrs. Hicks? No. District 4, Mr. Camp?
No.
District 5, Mr. Evans?
No.
District 6, Mrs. Shaw? Yes. District 7, Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
District 8, Mr. Potts?
I got a question. If we vote this thing down, what are we gonna do? That's what we're doing right now. We're voting it down.
I'm gonna make another motion that we see if we can find the funds.
Okay. I voted yes, we know it's gonna get done. I just want to be sure it's gonna be something else coming up behind this. Because if we don't, we're gonna be kicking our teachers dead in the head, our teachers and everybody else dead in the head. We're gonna give them a perfect excuse to leave. Perfect excuse. I don't care about I didn't know or whatever, they're gonna still leave. That's what's gonna happen, so be aware of that. Don't say that, you didn't get told, because you did get told.
I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Did we finish the tabulation here?
It's 5-3.
3-5, okay. Mr. Lloyd?
I would like to make a motion that we instruct Dr. Huskins and her staff to go back and review the budget and see if we can find the funding to implement the step increase as well, with a report back to us. Is June 26 too soon? or
No, that's fine. We've got to, because we've got to
Okay.
implement contracts.
At the June 26 meeting?
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote, Ms. Tammy, please. I'm sorry. Any discussion, any further discussion?
I got a question.
Sir?
If they don't find enough, what we gonna do then?
I don't know, let's wait and see if they can find the money.
Well, let's have faith that we can get it. All right. Okay, all right. Anybody else? We got a motion and a second.
June 26th.
June 26th. Roll call vote, please, Tammy.
District 1, Ms. Brady?
Yes.
District 2, Mr. Wood?
Yes.
District 3, Mrs. Hicks?
Yes.
District 4, Mr. Camp?
Yes.
District 5, Mr. Evans?
Yes.
District 6, Mrs. Shotwell? Yes. District 7, Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
District 8, Mr. Potts?
I guess so.
Motion carries.
Okay, next on the agenda. Thank you, Dr. Bucklew. Next is the Bluebird bus request. Mr. Lloyd.
Yes, and I'm going to be very brief in this. I simply did not understand the request, so I was going to see if we can get an explanation from Mr. Lewis. It's a little bit unusual. I don't think I've seen this request before. So,
Good evening again. Let me dig through my papers here and find it.
and it's the second one of the use of facilities, if that helps, Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, so we received an email for a request for the Bluebird propane-powered school bus. That Bluebird Bus Sales wants to use that bus at their conference coming up June 18th through the 22nd in Roanoke, Virginia. They want to pick the bus up, clean it up, and use it as a display at the Berglund Center so that the conference attendees can see it. Once the conference would be concluded, they would return that bus. I would say this is not a request that we typically get either.
And typically, we don't allow our buses out of the district, because once we start saying yes to outside use groups, we have to start, we can't discriminate and we can't say yes to other groups, so it's not.
Yeah, just
one
to echo that concern, that I think we want to reserve our buses for our children and their safe, yeah. That would
Got a
be,
motion to deny.
Second.
Second by Ms. Fraley.
it was the Bluebird Bus Sales Company.
Did they give us a
Shovel.
discount or?
I don't think it was any mention of a
compensation
discount.
for it? No
No, I
rental
mean, it's
fees?
just, once we say yes to them, we have to say yes to the Rock Fest and any other group that wants it, and we said no to Hitachi even, and they're one of our biggest partners and supporters.
So they were not offering to pay for that, yeah.
It doesn't matter if they want it or not, we just, yeah, no.
Yeah, they probably would do the propane, but just my opinion, I think we need to reserve that
Just need to be
for
consistent.
our students and stay consistent.
Can we modify that, that motion to approve the use of facilities except for the Bluebird bus item? Because we have not approved the other facilities
Right.
items.
We do need to approve
That's
the
true.
others. The others are in good shape.
So, Mr. McDowell, did you amend that motion? Did you amend your motion?
Yeah,
Okay.
amend my motion just for that bus, not
Approve the remainder? Okay.
Approve everything under, yeah, okay. So we're going to approve everything under usage, facilities usage, with the exception of the bus. Okay. That's the motion. We've got a second. Who made the second?
That's fair.
Ms. Fraley. Any other discussion?
I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Potts.
I don't think you can answer it, man.
I'm trying.
This is not, you can't, it got nothing to do with this. Dr. B, I need to know what we have a bus exchange program. In other words, we got so many new buses coming in every year. Do we have that program still in existence?
I'm currently not aware, but I can definitely find out for you. I don't know of one.
Okay. The reason I brought it up, I thought we had one where we were trying to get rid of the older buses and bring in newer buses. We had a certain amount of money we were gonna spend a year on that.
We did have a rotation schedule.
Yeah, we had a rotation schedule. And just to make sure everybody, I think Mr. McDowell probably knows about this, but we have buses right now that don't even heat up in the winter time. Okay? We have buses in '97 that they don't heat up in the winter time. Kids on the buses and the drivers on the buses blowing smoke out the mouth in the morning and the afternoon because it's cold on the bus. So we need to take a serious look at that and see, you know, I'm not worried about giving Bluebell, I want Bluebell to give me a discount when I get ready to buy some buses. That's what I want, but apparently nobody said nothing about that, so that wasn't the deal. But what is in the deal is that we don't have a program that you're not aware of. We had a program, we need to look into that. And if we don't have one, we need to get one started again because we did have one where we get 2 or 3 buses new every year. Because we got a bus 98 and it's cold.
Yeah,
Right.
it was a rotation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just bought 2.
We did buy 2.
We bought 2 this year.
We bought 2 this year?
Propane. We just bought 2. This is the one he wants to take up there. He wants to take one of these new ones up there and show it off.
Okay. We got a motion and a second?
Yep, I
Let's,
second it.
let's do a roll call, please, Tammy.
District 1, Ms. Braden.
Yes.
District 2, Mr. Lloyd.
Yes.
District 3, Mrs. Hicks. Yes. District 4, Mr. Camp.
Yes?
District 5, Mr. Evans.
Yes.
District 6, Ms. Shelton. Yes. District 7, Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
District 8, Ms. Potts.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you, Tammy. Financial reports, Mr. Potts? Yes, sir.
I got a couple of things on that I need to get clarified. I was told that this letter we sent out on May 22nd is legal. As far as being able to get the money from the board of supervisors. And I was under the impression that I thought any financial transaction had to be looked at by the board. And from what I understand, the board didn't look at that.
He's talking the reallocation of the funds between categories.
I know that I'm talking about on this side. Is that the case? Is that we, because I still got a problem with $700, $700 coming up to the same thing about it. But for some reason, it sounds like, and what's crazy about this letter came out the same day that the board of supervisors had the finance committee meeting. But you know how we were notified about that? In text message, which is extremely illegal, illegal.
You got an email, Mr. Potts.
Well, this email for this, but we got a text message asking us to approve, to say yes or nay. And we can conduct any business like that. I made some people aware of that, but for some reason, the message didn't get across to the attorney. But this is not what we can do. DSDA has told us several times, and I've regurgitated this, all of us, and for some reason, we still do that. We cannot, as a board, conduct business over any electronic apparatus. At all. We might get the email with it, but we sure can't vote on it. We gotta vote on this in person. That's so we can be transparent. Plus, it's supposed to be able to give the public an opportunity to know about it. And this right here didn't give no public any opportunity to know about it. The only public knew about this was us. And that ain't how it goes down. We need to know, and we need to make sure this doesn't happen again, because what it does do, I think it's illegal, and I think the fact that we got given or turned down the money by the board was wrong too, because this was wrong. But, you know, I'm just letting the board know, that's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Mr. Lloyd.
And Mr. Potts, I hear your concern, but I guess there's only 2 places I would respectfully disagree, in that the changes, the way I understood those changes in that letter, were only housekeeping in nature. You know, we were not making any changes to the overall budget. We were simply cleaning up line items and moving money within line item categories. And
You're right, but you know what you're wrong about? If I'm not mistaken, we had,
I don't think there was in the text message, I think it was more of a, please check your email. I don't think it was calling for a vote, because I would have certainly disagreed with that as well, if that would have been the nature of the text, but I think it was just check your email.
so when do we okay this? Because
There's,
when we sent this money right here, $44,000 million, we sent it over there, didn't we have to vote on that? Didn't we have to vote to send that to the board of supervisors? So if they're gonna transfer our money over to another line, shouldn't we be at least made aware of it before it goes into writing? And it got the J signature on it, like we had something to do with it?
Can I respond?
That's just my question.
Can I respond, please? I've got a letter, email, I don't know, text, email, whatever it is, but first of all, let me just say this. And I know I've said a lot about this tonight, about being a former finance director, but, you know, it used to be that we didn't do these things. We didn't do these things. It was a journal entry. It's an accounting journal entry basically moving money from one pocket to the other, okay? It's an internal thing, you move it, and that's it. So, didn't require any board approval then. And we received an email, and Mr. Potts received an email just like the rest of us. But to kind of solidify this, I was in contact with Elizabeth Ewing. She's the legal representative for the VSBA. And I found this out, and I sent this to Walter, and I sent this to Mr. Potts. And it says, good morning, Walter. I've been in touch with Mrs. Ewing, legal representative with VSBA, regarding the following. Number one, the budget line item adjustment. And number two, $52,000 penalty, okay? With regard to items 1 and 2 above, according to Ms. Ewing with VSBA, if the board has received prior notification of these two items, they have become part of the day-to-day operations of the school system. The school board was notified of the budget line item adjustment in an email from the superintendent on May 22nd, 2023. The superintendent also notified the school board of the $52,000 penalty during the closed session portion of the regular monthly meeting held May the 8th, 2023. So that's, you know.
So what she's telling you is that we don't have anything to say about paying an EPA off. That $52,000 that was screwed up by a former employee, and that we're supposed to automatically go ahead and pay it and not look at it. All we did is talk about it.
We can't talk about that. We can't talk about that.
No, you brought it up, I didn't bring it up, you brought it up.
Well, that's just my email.
Can we cover one thing at a time?
This is the one that we're talking about here. This is split check your email. Copy of the recent sent to Mr. Simpson to relocate funds between categories of the year in closeout. We have to ask the board of supervisors to move our money, but it is important for you all to know all the interactions with them. That's what the email was.
That's good.
I mean, it wasn't asking for a vote. She was just telling us, check your emails, and this is what we need to do.
The way it was explained to me, because last year we had to move some funds between the accounts. The way it was explained to me was that previously, in prior years, the Board of Supervisors, we gave them one total dollar amount, and that was the budget, and that's all they saw. So nothing was moved between categories at that time. For whatever reason, they asked for us to provide them the budget in a categorization. So this is the fund, how much is in that fund, this is another fund, how much is in there. And when it required to move items between the categories at that time, it has to go to the Board of Supervisors. Legally, it may not be required, but I would say from just a professional courtesy, anything that the Board of Supervisors has to approve should come through the school board first. That provides you a protection, and it provides, us showing support. So I would request that anything that the Board of Supervisors has to approve, we should review it first.
Thank you. And I asked for it, not to be legal. Somebody may have said it was legal, but it wasn't proper protocol. Because it should have come to the board, to us, first, to do that. Then we at least know about it. We didn't know about it, they already had this when we knew about it. So, thank you for saying that, I appreciate it, but that's what I want to make sure we understood. I'm not arguing about it being legal or not, because we'll find out whether it's legal or not.
Mr. Camp, may I say something?
Okay, yes, ma'am.
I just want to say a couple things about this, and then I'm going to let it go, and hopefully we can move on to the payment of bills here so we can go convene and go into closed session. We have an attorney. The school board has an attorney that we call upon when there's any way, shape, form, or fashion that we need to make sure that we're doing what we need to do legally. Our superintendent was the one who contacted our attorney to see if what was being done was legal, and it is. And it does make a difference, because sometimes when board members here have the attorney on their side about something, then it's okay. When the attorney is not on their side, then it isn't okay. I'm going to say one more thing, and then I'm going to be quiet. This board speaks as one. There's 8 of us that speak. And we speak as one body. And I take offense to any one board member who tries to speak for this board. And that happened this week during the Board of Supervisors meeting just about this situation. It was wrong. One board member does not speak for the entire board. The board speaks for the entire board. When information is sent from one place to the other, I would hope and pray that it would be legal, and I would hope and pray that it would be accurate, and I would hope and pray that it would be truthful. And it's come to my attention that some of those things that were transmitted on the phone were not. Dr. Huskin tries every way that she can since she has come on board here to do everything openly, honestly, and straightforward. And I'm not going to use the word transparent. That's talking about a piece of glass. I'm talking about being honest, straightforward to everybody in every situation. And she was open and honest in this situation about transferring $10 from one category to another. Something that, according to Mr. Camp, we didn't used to have to do. But now we have to do that. We have to put our items in categories so that the Board of Supervisors will let us use our money. How ridiculous is that? What Dr. Huskin was trying to do was make sure that our bills were paid. That's why she did what she did. And she called our attorney, who we have to protect us, to make sure that she was doing it correctly. Thank you, Mr. Camp.
Thank you, Ms. Friday. Okay.
I move we approve the financial report.
Is there a second? Got a motion and a second. All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion is carried.
I'd like to make one more motion,
Yes, ma'am.
just so that the full 8 members have a say. I would like to make a motion that anything that the Board of Supervisors needs to approve, the school board should approve as well.
That's not after they get.
Any discussion?
That's not after they get, that's before they get.
School board should approve first.
The school board should approve first, going to the Board of Supervisors. We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Roll call.
Roll call vote, please.
Can I ask Dr. Buckley a question on that? Going back to a previous conversation, if we're trying to find money, we may have to switch line items. So with that, we would vote on that, and then you would go to the Board of Supervisors, is that,
If this passes.
and would that require at some point, extra, like, special meetings to get our meeting in before you would take it to the Board of Supervisors? We have
Right.
to call special meetings, and sometimes.
We would have to call a special meeting, like, just for an instance, this transfer, we needed to make it before that Board of Supervisor meeting happened, so we could pay these bills and June bills and closing of our year. So if I had to come before this board, we would not have had the answer until after tonight, and that's going to push us to July at the Board of Supervisors. So timing is critical in a lot of these things.
And we didn't know that we were close to overextending in certain accounts last month? I mean, it seems if we know, if now you know what the expectation is, you would be able to plan ahead a little bit more.
Right.
So you would bring it to us last month before the Board of Supervisors. It's all about.
Sure, it's all
planning and
about fine
forecasting.
tuning,
Yeah.
so yes.
Right.
Next year's cycle will go a little smoother. I'm still in my infancy here, so.
Again, a part of it is we didn't adopt, have run this budget that we didn't create
We
or
didn't.
adopt or anything, and it's
Nothing.
been, next year we'll do better, no doubt.
I was just bringing that up because it'd be silly to call a meeting to vote on one thing and then leave for 5 minutes.
So I imagine things are time sensitive.
Anybody else?
They are time sensitive, but we'll do it however you want it.
Got a motion and a second on the floor to, what is the motion again, please, Tammy?
Any items that need to be approved by the Board of Supervisors should be reviewed and approved by the school board first.
Got a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
I'm going to say no because I believe that we need to let the superintendent do the superintendent's job, and I think the board needs to do the board's job.
No.
District 3, Mrs. Hicks? No. District 4, Mr. Camp?
No?
District 5, Mr. Evans?
No.
District 6, Ms. Shallow?
Yes.
District 7, Mr. McDowell? Yes. District 8, Mr. Potts?
Yes.
Motion failed for 5.
Payment of bills, Mr. Potts.
We just talked about it.
Okay.
Can I make a motion that we approve payment of the bills?
Got a motion and a second to pay the bills.
I have a question. Does that include the $62,000 that we haven't discussed?
Could you repeat that?
No, we can discuss it. No,
I didn't hear the
that-
question.
We've turned that over to our attorney.
52,000 is not in.
That's not in that.
That's not in
We've-
this.
No.
Okay.
That's not in
Well, I'm
this.
just asking.
It's still an open case.
Yeah.
It's an open case.
Not to make this any longer, but
It's an open case.
I have a couple questions since it's got its own line item. There's a couple of items in the bill payment that say they're refunds and credits, but they show as debits.
Yes. So that is in our occupational therapy. There were some credits issued to us for services that were charged but not rendered and questioned. So those are credits coming in. That is the last line on the statement. So it's not all credits. It's a combination of credits and debits. So
how would we see that that
we
it's a
could pull the
credit?
bill for you, so you could see
Oh, I don't
that.
need to see it, just from the report, we should be able to see if this expense is actually an expense, or if it's,
So what
if
you,
it totals up, then.
so what you see is the remaining expense after the credits were issued. So again, we're going to revamp how things are entered so that it's only picking up that last line on an invoice. So we're going to have to go a step further to put a total line of the service, rather than it just saying credit.
Okay. There was $15,000 transferred to the high school. Do you know what that was for?
So that they reached out and they needed more money to cover spring meals and summer meals for athletics.
Okay. And then there was one other item, a vehicle purchase for the operations department.
Yes, so that's a fleet replacement that we had room in the budget this year to do.
Okay. My understanding was that the operations budget was overextended, but there was $40,000 to purchase a new vehicle?
Part of our transfer, we included that, yes. So again, we have money in some areas and not in others, and we moved the money to establish the funding that we needed for what we were
And this
purchasing.
vehicle was needed?
Yes.
Okay. I move we approve, oh, we already have a motion.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor to pay the bills, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion is carried. Mr. Lloyd, would you send us a closed session, please?
Pursuant to Section 2.23711 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the board convene a closed meeting for the purpose of considering the following specific matters: personnel, the appointment, resignation, and salaries of specific division employees as authorized by Section 2.23711.1 of the Code of Virginia, and disciplining students, specific students of the school division as authorized by Section 2.23711.2 of the Code of Virginia.
We're going to take 5 minutes to come back to closed session. Oh, we got to vote, don't we?